ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Okay, good morning, councillors, good morning, members. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for the 23rd of August. I'd firstly like to open the meeting and pay acknowledgement to our traditional custodians on the land in which we meet today, the Drumble people, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gungaloo Nation people, the Barada, Cabelbarra and Yeddamarala people. Also extend that recognition to the Torres Strait Islander people whose lands are in the Torres Strait but who live and work on Aboriginal lands. Good morning, councillors. We have a full complement this morning, so we don't have any leaves of absence or thing, but we do have a request for leave of absence from myself from the 5th of September through to the 30th of September, inclusive, councillors. So I have a daughter that's getting married, and I'm really going to make sure that it's not giving as much support in that space as I possibly can, but looking to take some time to have a bit of a break. So move Deputy Mayor Councillor Fisher, seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put
Excuse
that.
me, Mayor, with some reluctance, because as we spoke about, that's probably the beginning of disaster season, so thank you.
And yeah, your role in the disaster management chair, it's great, great opportunity to test the water, so to speak. But that said, we have a mover and a seconder. Could I put that? Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. My wife will be really chuffed about that one, so thanks very much. Moving on to item 4, the confirmation of the previous minutes from the meeting held on the 9th of August, that the records be confirmed as true and accurate. Move Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We have quite a large agenda this morning, so we'll just see how that takes us through. But we have a declaration of interest in matters on the agenda. Councillor Smith with the Mount Morgan Pipeline Project. Councillor Smith, did you wish to speak to that, please?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I feel so left out of this project, but I've got a prescribed interest in the pipeline because it goes past my brother's place on Cabra Road and Mimira Road, and my sister and brother-in-law Trish and Don McKinnon own a property on the corner of Poison Creek Road and Mimira Road, which is certainly looks like the track that the pipeline's going along. And I'll deal with this conflict by leaving the room and staying away from the place where the matter's discussed.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Again, that's part of having a large family, and you know, the pros and cons with regards to that, but it's better to have that recorded. Councillors, if there are any further declarations as we move through the items on the agenda, please make us aware of that, and we'll deal with them at that time. Moving on to business outstanding, councillors. We have a matter that we lift off the table. Two matters there, that development application for a material change of use for a telecommunications tower facility, and also the 5th Australian Open Junior Golf Championship. So could I have a mover and a seconder with regards to lifting those matters? Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Kirkland. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We move on to item 7. There's a public deputation of Form 7.1, deputation on DA 34/2022, development application for a material change of use for a telecommunications facility. And we have Mark to present that deputation, so we'll welcome you to the microphone. Thank you, Mark. It's part of our protocols is to everyone, councillors, to stand when we acknowledge the deputation. So welcome, and we look forward to hearing your deputation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Barty. I'm a planning consultant that's acting on this application. I was present at the previous meeting when this application was discussed and listened obviously very carefully to the issues that were raised. As a result of that, there's been some changes to the application, and I thought I would also take the opportunity. It seemed to me last time there were a few matters that were probably left hanging a little bit, so I thought I would take the opportunity to make a deputation, and you can ask whatever you want of me. So I've just prepared a short PowerPoint presentation. There it is. Just to quickly go back over some of the information. It's all before you, but I thought it would be helpful to have a quick look at it. So the proposal, as you're aware, is for a 30-metre monopole on the Baptist Church site. It's got a head frame on the top that has antennas on it. There's an equipment cabin at the bottom of the pole, and it's surrounded by fencing in a compound for it. The proposal will provide 4G and 5G services to the surrounding area, and it's specifically designed to accommodate co-location. So I thought these were briefly discussed at the last meeting and they're contained in the documentation, but I just thought I would go over them again. So in terms of the need for the site, if I can, there we go. So there's the subject land just there. So what you're looking at is the existing 4G coverage in the area around Norman Gardens. Now, these maps are generated to show what customers could expect in those areas at a signal level that's sufficient usually for indoor coverage. So that means that data services in particular will have sufficient signal strength that they should still deliver good data speeds. So the areas that are outside that are not in the green, there is coverage there. That's not what this map is trying to show, but the signal level is not likely to be sufficient to enable the high-speed data services, and there's likely to be some indoor coverage issues in those areas. So as you can see, it's a lot of properties. So this one shows there's currently an approval, well I'm not sure actually if there's an approval, but there's a proposed facility at 307 Farm Street in Norman Gardens, which is by a company called Axicom, which supplies a lot of sites for Optus and Vodafone. And that site is not built, but we assume that if it were built, would that provide an alternate location to the proposal that Stillmark's put forward? What you can see there is it does improve the coverage around that site, which is marked, which is just there, but it's too far away from those areas around the Baptist Church to provide that level of signal, to provide that the level of coverage that we're looking for. Signal, of course, is attenuated by vegetation, it's attenuated by distance, and it's attenuated by all the things it needs to pass through, you know, trees, buildings, all of those sorts of things. And topography also plays a role. If then we've mapped the a candidate that, or the proposal that we have at the Baptist Church land, because it's on slightly higher land as the land sloping up towards the hills, the coverage area is actually larger than the other one, which is lower down in the landscape, and you can see it covers a good part of that Norman Gardens area along Norman Gardens Road and further to the west. We also did a map to show, oh hang on, there we go. If both sites were constructed, you would have pretty much ubiquitous coverage across that area. So that's the level of coverage that is generally aimed for by the networks to ensure that customers have good access to services, reliable access, and robust access to data services, particularly when there's a lot of people using the network at the same time, because at the end it only has a finite capacity, and the more sites that are built where they're needed, the better the performance of the network for everybody.
Mark, I just have a question.
Yes.
Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Mark, sorry to interrupt so
Not at all.
earlier. Just some clarification to help me understand at
Yes.
least. So is the coverage by usage or by distance? By the number of users or by distance?
It's actually a combination of both. We're very conditioned as users to understand what a coverage map is. You know, you can see the areas that are covered, but there are also capacity limits to the network. So there is an upper limit to the number of people that can service at once, and particularly when it's very busy, and lots of people have more than one device. They don't just have a phone, they have an iPad or a laptop or whatever they might else be using. In the city centre, for example, in say Brisbane, there's many more sites over a very small area because there's a lot of people, a lot of obstructions and a lot of demand. So although the signal from a facility might travel many kilometres and you might be able to see it on your phone that you've got a signal, you won't necessarily be able to use it. You'll probably be able to use it for a voice call and a text message, but if you try and access data, it'll be much slower the further you move away. You get inside a building, that gets worse, and if you're suddenly with 1,000 other people, like if you go to the football or something like that, the capacity drops enormously. And so the coverage is, that's why these maps are prepared based on a particular scenario, which is in-building coverage in a local area. But it doesn't mean that when that site's built, you won't be able to use it over here, over by the river or something like that. But that's not the idea. A cellular mobile network works best when it just serves the people, within about 1 kilometre or 1.5 kilometres around it. It doesn't work best if it tries to cover too much.
So can I ask then why in rural areas they cover such a large distance?
Yep. In rural areas, the structures are usually taller and maybe on top of a hill. There's also a lot fewer people to service, so the capacity of the base station is spread over a larger area. But as you move further from that base station, the performance of it will drop. You'll get slower data speeds. But for a lot of those areas, it's about covering, highways and farms, land and stuff like that, so that people can still make phone calls, emergency calls, etc. Some of those sites out on the highway are also higher power, so they have more power coming out from the antennas, so they can cover a slightly larger area.
So, Mr. Mayor, one final question, if I could. So, if that tower was to go higher, would it then cover a bigger area and we would have less towers to contend?
Do you mean taller?
Taller?
Not necessarily, because it doesn't in an urban area, because you've got a lot of users, it doesn't really overcome the distance issue. It would cover more area if it was, say, 40 metres tall, but you would still need multiple. You still wouldn't be able to service, Rockhampton with 1 or 2 sites. You would still need a density of sites. But the simple answer to your question is yes, it would serve a bigger area, but it wouldn't service a remarkably larger area because the number of users is still very high.
So I think, for instance, that second tower that's proposed, if that larger tower at that site was larger, would you require that one there still?
Well, I think if we just go back to the other slide, we got a bit carried away with the animation, but you can see that even if that was larger, I'm not sure of the height of that, it's probably 30 metres. Even if that was taller, it would incrementally improve the coverage towards the east, but it's not going to reach the foothills. So they're still going to be able to work together. And in fact, if you see the red lines, they are indicatively the orientation of the antennas. And the orientation of the antennas has to have regard for the sites that are around it, so they don't overlap too much and they don't interfere with each other. So it might be that if the tower at the Axicom one was taller, that the configuration of the one that we're talking about might be different, but there would still need to be something. It wouldn't eliminate the need? It wouldn't eliminate the need. No. It just might change its configuration.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yes, I think you just answered part of my question. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The red lines, I was thinking that was as far as the signal went, but you're saying that's the orientation of the antennas.
That's right, yeah. So, sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry, you're saying that it only has 1.5 kilometre radius of signal, and I'm thinking, how do all these other houses, obviously there's all more telecommunications towers throughout, to cover that whole area?
Yeah, so the little, those are the location of other towers. There's another one down here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where that green circles come from. That's where that green areas come from. There must be another one up here as well. There's one obviously down here. So no, the red lines are just to indicate the direction of the antennas. And for example, the antennas are facing up and down the face of the hill. There's not much point facing into the hill. There's nobody really there. Yeah. So that's the that's the optimised configuration for that particular tower, assuming that that one's been built, which it hasn't been. So there might be some adjustments made. But it's quite normal when new sites are built that there are adjustments to the surrounding ones to optimise it and make it work as efficiently as possible.
Just another question, Mr Mayor. You've got proposed 4G cover at the top there, but you said in your opening remarks it's 4G and 5G?
Yes. So 4G 1800, which is the frequency, 1800 megahertz, is the base layer that when we make a phone call, that's generally the layer that our phones will talk to. If 5G is available, it will move on to 5G, or it will use 5G for data. 5G has higher frequencies from about 2300 megahertz up to about 3500, so they're slightly higher frequencies. But as the frequencies go up, the coverage area decreases. So if there was a 5G coverage map showing exactly the same as that, it would show a coverage over lesser area. So the point is, if you consider 4G, that's the core layer that people use, that the mobile networks put people on first. If 5G is available, it will move on to it, but not all the green area will have 5G, even if 5G was on all of those sites, because it just covers a smaller area. That's the unfortunate side of it.
That's another question. When 5G was first introduced, there was a lot of concerns about health concerns, and I know this, you know, I'm not sure the Australian standards are always correct.
I've got a bit on that, but
yeah,
go on.
okay,
No, that's okay. I will just say though, 5G, there were the same concerns over 4G when that came out, and a long time ago, there were concerns about 3G, in my view, the industry probably hasn't done itself any favours. But 5G is essentially just a marketing term. It's the next evolution. It's differentiated from what came before, but it still uses the same frequencies. The highest frequency of 5G that we use in Queensland is the same as NBN uses for its wireless towers around the place. So it's just a different application. It's a much more efficient application of the same types of technology, and so things go faster, you can service more users, but it's not a new technology in terms of it's never been used before, and it is covered by the Australian standard as well.
Mark, and just I'm not sure whether you're able to answer, but the 3G network's becoming redundant, that's not going to exist in the near future?
Yes, it is. Although 3G is still available, new sites don't tend to include it unless they're replacing a site that's been decommissioned. So 3G, it'd be very unlikely that 3G would go on this facility. And for most people now, because we get used to things that are faster and faster and faster, 3G is really just useful for voice calls and text messages and very, you know, if you're absolutely desperate for data. But it's not being deployed anymore. And eventually it will be switched off, just like 2G was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so when I was here at the July meeting, it seemed to me that there were a number of issues that were raised that I have addressed in the additional information that I provided back to Council, but I just thought I would cover them here because as they were raised at this table, there might be some more questions about them. So they were, as I saw it, there were obviously questions about EME, which Councillor Smith has touched on. The alternate location on the church land, previous advice from the church to residents, which was the letter that went out to the residents, and also future use of that land for residential, given it's so large. So I'd just like to talk briefly about the EME report that's in the documents that was discussed last time. So a new EME report has been generated based on the new location, which we'll talk about in a moment. So, so the EME report, its purpose is twofold. It calculates the maximum EME levels from a proposed site, and each time there's any changes to that site, say if there's a co-location or additional equipment's added, that EME report is updated. So it's the maximum level. The maximum level is stated on the report as a percentage of the Arpansa standard, and that Arpansa standard is called RPS S1, and the last update to it was in 2021. The standard is very conservative, and it has the maximum allowable limit is 100% of the standard. But that's, if you go to 101%, it doesn't mean that there's any issues because there's a very significant safety margin built into it in order to protect more vulnerable people, such as kids and pregnant women, sick people who are sick. So there have been observed effects from radio frequency emissions about 50 times above where the standard sits, so the 100% standard 50 times above that, and those effects are heating, so you get warm from it. They're not biological effects in terms of DNA or anything like that, but the standard that we use in Australia, which has been in place for a number of years and is constantly reviewed, the 100% is about 50 times below where health effects or effects have been measured, and we're talking about 1.67% of that maximum standard, so that's about 60 times below. So there's a very conservative safety margin built in. And that is for, and as I've said there, it's for people of all ages, and it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it doesn't matter how long you're there for. It's not time or dose related. You are protected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we're sitting here, there's a base station across the street. We could sit here forever, and it would never exceed that standard. It doesn't matter whether we're here for an hour or all day. The standard covers all frequencies from 100 kilohertz, which is very low, up to 300 gigahertz, which is very high, and includes 5G. And the frequencies that we're talking about, which are actually listed at the bottom of page 1 of the EMEA report, range from 700 megahertz up to 3.5 gigahertz. You can see they fit around about in the middle of that range. So the EMEA report that has been prepared, what it attempts to do is express the maximum calculated EME from the site at 1.67%, and then it gives indications of the maximum levels in rings out from the site, 50 metres, 50 to 100, etc. So the maximum occurs somewhere between 100 and 200 metres, and it says up the top there it's actually at around 190 metres. Now that maximum is 1.67%, which, as I said before, is about 60 times below. But the important thing to remember is it's the maximum level. The maximum level only occurs when the facility is operating at full capacity. So it is working flat out. It's got maximum number of customers it can hold, the maximum data sessions, calls. That hardly ever happens. But even if it did, that's the maximum it would reach. Through the rest of the time, levels are usually much lower because, as you can imagine, demand is much higher through the day, there's much less demand at night, and whenever there's lower levels of demand, the power from the tower is reduced because it doesn't need to service anybody. And in fact, the network is set up to minimise the amount of power used because it causes interference in the network. So if no one was using the tower, it would have an absolutely tiny little pilot light on, if you like, ready for someone to request service from it. But if it was working flat out, it would get to 1.67%, which is well below the standard. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Thanks, Mark. We've got a couple of questions there. Yes. Councillor Kirkland and then Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just noting that what you commented just then is when the amount of demand is on the tower, that level of EME increases. I'm thinking, the location of the church on this particular property, the amount of people that go to that church on when they have activities, and certainly, the university uses that facility for graduation ceremonies sometimes, or other ceremonies I've noticed.
Yes.
So everybody carries on them their mobile phone and that type of thing. If all of those people are in that facility, that's going to increase the normal natural load when that's not being utilised. That would be correct, yes?
Well, if people just have their phones on them, their phones will just be on standby. The tower is not. It's recognising that they're there, but it's not doing anything.
It's only if they're texting,
that's right. Yes, or
downloading,
correct,
or
that's
something.
Right. So if they all got on their
like
phone to download
at the same time.
That's right.
Okay.
The other thing I'd just point out with that is the antenna has the base station has essentially 3 sides, and you'll notice on the drawings they're called sectors, and they face, in fact, they're kind of what those red arrows were showing before. So there are a set of antennas that face this direction, a set that face this direction, a set that face this direction. That maximum only occurs if all of them are working at the same time. So the one that faces the church, for example, that might be working flat out, but these ones will still be servicing their areas. So the point is the maximum would be an unusual situation that you would have that happening. But yes, you're right, it would increase the demand on those antennas,
yeah.
but it would still never...
And just the close proximity to the actual tower, that was my thought process.
Yes.
Thank you for clearing that
no
up.
problem.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Mark, thanks very much for the explanation on this. When you were talking about the capacities, I know that's one of the issues I've had with a lot of large-scale events now, when they all have apps in regards to what to do, because
download the app.
Everyone's downloading the app and everyone's using the app, and that's where the capacity comes from.
That's right.
Look, just for my own benefit, because I'm just questioning this, 100 metres to 300 metres seems to be the peak. Why is that? Is it because of the way it radiates from the tower? I just noticed there's less close to the tower than there is further away from the tower.
That's right. The way I describe it is that it shines out like a torchlight. So if you hold a torch, there's hardly any light at your feet, and it hits the ground somewhere out here, depending on how you hold the torch. So there is coverage under the tower. There is signal strength under the tower, but it's much lower than the main signal beam that comes out, and usually at 30 metres, usually hits the ground at around the 150 to 200 metre mark. So that's why you can see at 50 to 100 it's 0.96, and then it goes up, and then it comes back down again. And obviously the further you move away, that number will keep coming back down. But yeah, that's how it works.
Thanks for that, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
So the other thing that I did, because this came up during the conversation in July, was, so there's the numbers repeated on the right-hand side that you just saw on the previous screen, but we've also added in what are called, they're called in the system points of interest, and I've added in there the Baptist church, the closest dwelling, which because of the site's now shifted, that closest dwelling was on the other side of the property, now it's shifted to Parkside Place. That was 6 Lanswood Close was the closest dwelling before. 12 Brigalow Avenue, the childcare centre, which was discussed at the meeting last time, and also the nursing home a little bit further up the road. So you can see, because they're getting progressively further away, you can see here that numbers come right down. 0.3% is the maximum at the childcare centre. The nursing home's a bit further away, so that's lower again. And that's the maximum at the church, which is probably driven by the fact that it's a bit closer. As well as being further away, depending on where the antennas point, depends on how much energy is received there as well. So even though something might be closer, it might be not in the direct side of the antenna, so the number might be a bit lower. But the point of this is to give you some idea of the levels at these different locations around the site, rather than just have a number at the top. So I hope that's of some use. And you would have seen this in the documents. So there's ARPANSA is the body in Australia. It stands for the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Authority, and they are the government agency responsible under the Department of Health for setting the standard in Australia. And that is their current position. Based on current research, there are no established health effects that can be attributed to low RF EME exposure from mobile phone base station antennas. It's important to note as well that the standard that's used for mobile phone towers is the same standard that's used for Wi-Fi that we have in our home, mobile phones, airport radar, which you can imagine is a much higher power, AM, FM radio, television transmitters, they all use the same standard, but because these are very low power, that's why we get very low numbers. You'd find the airport radar, for example, would be much higher, much closer to the 100%. There's also the World Health Organisation, whose role it is to coordinate research into all sorts of things, including the safety of mobile phones and mobile phones base stations, and their position is similar. There's no indication that there's an increased risk of cancer or any other disease, and they've stated specifically on 5G, because the frequencies are higher, that provided that the overall exposure remains within those guidelines, which our standard is within those guidelines, there are no consequences for public health are anticipated. The carriers don't set the standard, they just have to comply with it. And obviously the EME report shows that, but these are the bodies that coordinate the research, do the peer reviews, etc. And at the end of the day, these are the people that the experts in that area.
Question, Mark.
Yep.
Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mark, once the tower is established and operating and all that sort of thing, is there an ongoing review of the EME, and what would happen, so that's part A of the question, what would happen if it came to the point where the users and the usage was much higher than you had mapped out or anticipated? What happens then? And it is actually going in breach of those measurements that they've given you, the maximums of
Okay, sure. With the EME report its other, which I didn't say before, but its key role is to show compliance with the standard. Although the focus is on the maximum number demonstrates compliance because it's less than 100%. If, for example, another carrier, say Optus went on this facility and then Telstra decided it wanted to go on it, that would trigger a review of the EME report, but it would also trigger a review of an accreditation which needs to be independently certified, and it's publicly available on the RFNSA website, which is where the environmental EME report comes from, that it's still in compliance with the standard. So if nothing changes on the site, just because it gets busier, it can't go any higher than that because that's all the equipment that it's got there, but it might have additional transmitters added or whatever it might be in the future. That would increase the EME. That would be reviewed at that point, and there would be another accreditation that yes, it still meets those. Now it might go up to 3% or 5% or 10%, but it will still be well within that the limit. And like I said before, that's the maximum. So there's always a focus on that number, but the reality is, in practice, the number will be a lot lower. Yeah, just because of the variations across the day, etc.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So it's always. So I guess the answer to your question is there's always a certification that it does comply, and if there are any changes to the facility, it needs to be recertified.
Yeah, but there's no other regular reviews that outside of changes to the facility. If nothing changes on the site in terms of the level of equipment or what it can do, there's not really any need to review it because it can't go beyond that. I think my thought process was that the amount of users and the amount of people using it increased that EME, but
Well, it can't go past that maximum, but if, for example, if you had a lot of extra users, you would get congestion on the site. So people would stay, if there were a lot of users, many more than were anticipated, you would have the situation that you were describing before about everybody trying to do something at once. People would experience slower data speeds and all that sort of thing. So then it would be up to the carrier to decide what else can we do to this facility to make it work better, or alternatively, maybe it means there needs to be another facility in that suburb over there to try and reduce the demand on this one.
And that would trigger a review.
That's exactly right. And but particularly with 5G, that adds a lot of capacity to base stations. So this will be, this will do the job for quite some time. But you never say never in this. It's always changing.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. So the alternate location was determined after the last meeting. So I went back out on the site and spoke with the church. Unfortunately, the gentleman we've been dealing with had COVID, so he wasn't on site. But that's where it was before. So that was the location that you were considering at the July meeting. My view is that, having been out on site, that this location here, which is a little bit lower in the landscape and it's about 55 metres away, it's also surrounded by more trees. This is a bit more open in here. And it's also a bit closer to the church, which was one of the discussion points at last month's meeting. But these trees here are quite tall, and my observations are from the church and this recreation area here will make absolutely no difference to them. They still won't be able to see it. These trees are too tall. The other observations I made on site were these trees that are along this reserve here, particularly these ones, pretty much will obscure a view of the tower, or if you can see it, it will not be a view that is a dominant kind of view. These ones are a little bit more spread out, but you're further away, and the topography of the site means that even though these trees are smaller, there's just no way that you would be able to see from these houses down through there, through those trees, and have any sort of clear view of that location. You've got the creek here, which has got trees along it, so all of these houses will have no view of it either. I think it's a better location than that one, because it's a bit lower in the landscape. It's still well back from Norman Road, and the houses and everything that's going on over here, I don't think it has any impact on them at all. The church is agreeable, obviously, to it, so I think that achieves some of the outcomes that were discussed at the last meeting. But obviously you'll be the judge of that.
I just got a question, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you to Mark. Mark, where it says 119 metres from the facility, obviously that would probably be, by my calculations, the closest one, the actual distance closest to it. Do you know, could you tell us what that measurement is?
So that's
from the closest to the house to the facility?
Sure. That that measurement there is actually because there's a reserve that runs up there, so that's not part of the subject land. So that's actually just a measurement to the boundary.
But to the house would be how much?
To the house is here 150.
No, not that one, the one where it's 119.
Yeah, but that's only to there.
Yeah, but if it was to extend out to the house, because that would be the closest house.
Yes, well, it must be less than that. That's a good point. It would be, I don't know, it would be in the order of 140 to 150, something to their back sort of wall.
I think something in the report says
similar to
145 or 146 metres, which is less than the 150 required.
Yep.
I think that would be possibly the one in the report.
Yep, and you can see how dense the trees are there too. And then you've got 166 metres to over here and 157, but even though that's only slightly further, you've got a lot more trees, etc., shielding this area, and still 145 back from Norman Road.
Councillor Latcham?
Just another quick question.
Sure.
Was there any consideration, and I'm grateful that you've actually looked at other considerations to where it was originally planned,
Sure.
but to bring it closer, another 11, 12 metres towards where it says 88 metres, there's a little gap there, just in there.
That's a track that they use that goes around
Yeah.
there. The other reason that seemed like a good spot was the trees that are here will effectively screen any view of the base of it if you're looking up through here, because it'll be obscured by vegetation.
I guess my question was, Mark, was if it was close, just where you see the word 88 metres, is that little...
In here?
Yeah, just in there, or actually to the left of that. Yeah, just in there, but where the trees are, like in a little bit of a cup there.
Yeah. There?
Back a bit. Back,
There.
Yep, in there, perfect.
Yep.
So that spot there would have obviously been shielded by all the trees, and it also would, and you wouldn't be able to pretty much see it from anywhere, because it's shielded. I guess that then makes that 145 metres from the nearest house would be more than 150, so that would
It'd be
kind of
closer
tick
to
the
this-
box
be closer
on
to this.
everyone being at least 150 metres away from it.
I think it'd be closer to this one though.
Yeah.
You're going to shift it down there, this number's going to
Well,
probably
it's
drop below
157, but I'd imagine it's closer to 150 once you move it into there. And the other thing is, I noticed from the footpath, there seems to be lighting. There's a electricity pole or something or other there. They've got lighting about in where that location is. So obviously
In
they've
here.
got already existing service to that area, which what I thought would have been
There is
in the benefit.
electricity in there somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure of the detail. There is a box on a pole there, I think.
Yeah. I just sort of thought that would have ticked the box on making everything more than 150 metres from the facility. Yeah, just a comment anyway.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't spoken to the church about that. The creek runs just there as well, so it comes through there. We'd obviously have to talk to them about that. But at the end of the day, numerical compliance, I guess, is one thing. I guess we're in a residential zone, all those sorts of things. I suppose this is more about, on balance, is the amenity improvements that we've made by moving that, regardless of the exact separations, are they, appropriate? So I guess that's the decision that you'll discuss in due course.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor Kirkland?
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. Mark, how far does that change now make it, how far from the childcare centre?
That's on the... it doesn't actually list the distance to the childcare centre, but I could look that up. It is listed on the RFNSA, but it's not listed on the report. I think it was about 230 or 40 metres last time, so it's probably about 200 metres, but I could check it if you really wanted to know.
That's right.
Yep. Okay, so the other issue that came up that I just wanted to briefly touch on, there was a letter sent out by the church to residents, which some of the residents were a bit confused about why that location wasn't pursued. So when the church was first asked to consider the application, or consider something on their site, they decided to be consultative with the surrounding community and ask them what they thought. But to do that, they needed to nominate a spot. And their thinking was, in the way that it's been explained to me, is that, well, we'll just put it over there on the northern boundary against the reserve, and we'll see what people think about it. But it wasn't put in terms of, this is where it's going to go, what do you think about it? It was more in terms of, we're thinking about doing this, if it was here, and more generally if it was on the site, what are your comments? The comments that came back rejected that location, and so the church decided that that it would be better. In fact, the comment that was said to me was, one of the neighbours said, well, you've got this big piece of land, why would you put it on the furthest spot so that it's closer to us? Why don't you put it more centrally so that it's further from everybody? And that's effectively what happened. So the church decided to pursue a more centrally located site to use the tree cover and maximise the separation from all boundaries. It's important to note that that northern boundary location, it was never likely to be the subject of a DA, and the church certainly hadn't provided its consent to lodge anything at that application. So although it's unfortunate there was a bit of confusion about it, it was never going to be the subject of a DA. That was really just their initial consultation process to determine what it was that they wanted to do. And as I've mentioned, the proposal is now for a location with greater separation and screening, and it protects residential amenity, probably to about the maximum that it can on that site. So the future use of the subject land, obviously we're talking about a bit of land that's about 9 hectares in size. That was raised at the previous meeting about concerns whether or not the locating the facility on the land might somehow sterilise it from future use. In planning terms, there are no reasons that that would happen. There's no mandated physical separation distance from a pole. It becomes really an amenity issue then about, whether people want to live next to a monopole or a substation or train station or whatever it might be. The church doesn't have any plans to utilise any of that land for development in the foreseeable future. The land is constrained by that creek in particular, and it's flood prone in parts. So in terms of a rough calculation of how many allotments you might get out of a 9 hectare site, they're likely to be much lower on this site because you'd have a lot of servicing costs, a lot of flood mitigation costs. So there would obviously be some sort of, whether or not economically it's worth it. But at the end of the day, the church can make whatever future application it sees fit to make on the land. So it could come to council with an application for a residential subdivision or a community use or whatever else it liked. It's not affected by this application, and then that would be assessed against the planning scheme at whatever the planning scheme said at that point in time. So there's no sort of sterilisation or prohibition coming about using that land if this was to be approved. In my planning experience, I would say it would just be a constraint on the site that would be master planned around in some way. It might be in a park, or it could be at a community use or something like that. But as I said, it's just pure speculation because the church doesn't have any plans. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And again, we probably let that one roll over a little bit longer because there were a lot of questions around, and we have some new councillors at the table that haven't had these applications previously on the agenda. So thank you for your deputation, and I'd like to seek a mover and a seconder that we receive the deputation. Move Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Rutherford. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Mark, for your deputation.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, councillors, we'll move into the agenda item there. Item 10, officers' reports. 10.1, the D34 2022, the development application for material change use for telecommunications towers. And Kathy on the hop. Thank you very much, and we'll present that report. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. So as we've just heard, the development application is for a telecommunications tower located at 652 to 664 Norman Road, Norman Gardens. The proposed development application was tabled at the council meeting on the 12th of June 2022. The council resolution was that the matter lay on the table pending discussions with the applicant and property owner on alternative location of the facility on the subject site. As we just heard, I always use this upside down, don't I? Okay. As a result, a revised location 55 metres southwest of the original location has been proposed. This relocation places the facility closer to the church building on ground of slightly lower elevation and among a greater number of taller trees, further minimising its visual impact. The revised location has increased the setbacks to all residential uses to the north by a further 40 metres, whilst remaining compliant with the setback requirements to the east, south and west. A revised environmental EME report for the new location was generated and shows the relocation has also had the effect of slightly lowering the EME levels to be expected by the facility from 1.7 to 1.67. The development remains generally compliant with the provisions included in the applicable planning scheme codes and is not anticipated to compromise the strategic framework, therefore is recommended for approval subject to the conditions in the report.
Thanks very much, Kathy. Questions to Kathy? We've been through this one quite a bit, councillors, and the deputation explained a lot of the items in details, but happy to take any further questions. If there's no further question, Councillor Rutherford.
Not a question, just a comment, Mr.
Yep,
Mayor,
thank you.
and probably to thank Mark for that great presentation. And for the compromise, I think, you know, so often we've run into brick walls with these types of facilities, and, you know, we've really been stuck with whatever was presented. So the fact that they've gone back and reconsidered the location, and it is a much better location than what was presented to us. So.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Kirkland.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and echoing what Councillor Rutherford has just said there, I just wanted to say thank you to Mark and the team and to our team as well for working together and coming up with compromise there and a better solution. You know, 40 extra metres means a lot more peace of mind for those residents, so thank you.
Yep, and again, they're great comments, councillors, and I too had these deputations previously when we've had these applications come through, but every time there's new information that we can all glean from that deputation. So I thank Mark for presenting that. In hindsight, it may have been beneficial maybe to have the process before we went there, but that said, those questions wouldn't have been there that Mark's answered for us in that deputation. So if there's no further questions, Councillor Mathers, would you like to move as Chair for the portfolio? Seconded Councillor Wickerson. So no further questions. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Wish to record you, Councillor Latcham, wish to record his vote against that recommendation. Thank you. Councillor, the recommendation's approved, and we'll move on to our next agenda item. Thanks very much for your presentation, Kathy. Item 10.2, the development application for a material change of use for a residential care facility, 90 bedrooms. And we'll ask Brendan to present that report. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to clarify with Evan, maybe this has come up before about Upper Dawson Road, that this development feeds both into Spencer Street and Ward, and then on Upper Dawson, which is only about probably 3 blocks from mine, but I don't believe that I've got any sort of a conflict, because it's no benefit or... So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, just if you maybe put it to the table. Just ask the table.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it to the table. I don't think I've got a conflict because there's no benefit or greater benefit or detriment than anyone else.
Okay, councillors, I'll just ask for a show of hands there. If everyone believes Councillor Wickerson doesn't have a conflict in that matter, put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I need a mover and a seconder for that? I'll move that, and seconded Councillor Fisher. Again, I'll just run through the process. I'll ask for that vote again, please. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so I'll hand over to Brendan here to walk us through that one. Thank you very much.
Cool. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. This is a development application for a material change of use for a residential care facility. It's 75 Ward Street, The Range. Yeah. So, yes, the site's already improved by Mercy Aged Care Health Residential Care Facility. You'll see that the southwestern corner of the site is vacant. That's where the development's proposed. And the southeastern corner also, which is where the car park's proposed. So, next slide, thanks. So this is a proposed site plan. So like I said, you'll see in the southwestern corner, that's where the proposed residential care facility is going. It's a 90-bed facility. Maximum 12.5 metres high and 3 stories with some additional car parking. There's an additional car park proposed in that southeastern corner with 34 car parking spaces and 12 car parking spaces proposed, additional car parking spaces proposed from Ward Street. So this is just an isometric massing image of the proposed development, just to give you some context around how it looks for the existing development. You'll see it's fairly consistent with the existing built form on the site in terms of bulk and scale and height. So we recommend the proposal be approved. It generally complies with the requirements in the planning scheme and doesn't compromise the strategic framework. It's a use that's contemplated for in the low density residential zone. Like I said, the site's an established residential care facility, so we believe it's within reasonable community expectations to go there. And therefore we recommend the development application be approved subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks very much, Brendan. We've got a number of lights on. I'll go Councillor Fisher, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Brendan, I know this site very, very well, and Joe, I spent most of yesterday there in that precinct, and the car parking is at best limited.
Yeah.
Where this is a overspill of car parking for that precinct. I think, you know, at the moment there, Ward and Spencer Street are very congested. This, you're talking about the proposed parking area. That is parking area that they're using now. Where are these other cars going to go? I just think that it's a great site. I know that the Sisters of Mercy will do a great job in presenting the building and everything. But 6 months, 12 months after this open, we will be dealing with angry residents, angry users of the Botanic Gardens that will have roadways that are just so congested. But yesterday there, I actually was parked in that proposed car park for a period of time. That was the only parking between the Mater Hospital and the Bethany Nursing Home after doing 2 or 3 laps. That is the one concern that I have. There's going to be an increase of staff because of the facilities. I just don't think it's going to be able to cope with the number of cars and where those cars are going to go. At the same time, we're promoting, and the Rockhampton Botanic Gardens and Zoo are gaining more and more traction as a tourist destination, that even that is going to be an impediment. But I just don't think the parking has been addressed just in that one spot.
Yep.
Brendan?
Yeah, through the chair. So obviously acknowledge that area in the southeastern corner of the site is informally used for car parking. It's part of this application. They're looking to formalise that. I do recognise there's some car parking issues in that area. What we're looking at in this context is what's been proposed for this specific development and the car parking rates required by that. You'll see that the 34 car parking spaces there don't cover the entire vacant portion of that southeastern corner. There may be the option to condition additional on-site car parking spaces above that 34 to formalise what's there. But yeah, car parking with these types of developments is always an issue, and it's just something you kind of have to balance in terms of community need and interest.
Can I ask a further question? So if this was at the table, the councils were, I would like to actually ask the council that we do condition the further parking to actually maximise the amount of parking space for all users within this precinct. I think that would be, if that would be possible.
Just through the chair, it is, though the car parking spaces they propose as part of this does comply with the planning scheme, but like I said, obviously there's some conflicts there given that that area is currently informally used for car parking, so...
Councillor Wickerson?
Well, thanks, Mayor. Probably along the same lines, and also another issue with the parking. So as we said, the parking down the lower right-hand corner is grass at the moment. It's informally used, so it's sort of nearly a net zero benefit with that, unless they maybe use the whole site. The other park further up along Spencer Street, currently, I just did a quick count on Google Earth, whatever, there's about 40 there already. That is a formed up car park. So they're actually losing, you said 15 or so by that. So it's not even new parking, it's actually going backwards a little bit. The park up the top of Ward Street, where it says 12 new parks, That's their entrance turnaround for their entrance to that particular building. The one that looks like an X, the existing Bethany building. That's sort of like a turnaround. So I'm not sure how that's going to function as an entrance. So that was the parking there. So I agree with Councillor Fisher with that, to re-explore that. But there was a mention in there from one of the submitters about extra pressure put on traffic in Ward Street. Well, that also applies to Spencer Street. I gather they're a resident of Ward, so that's what their focus is on. Previously, we've had issues from residents that are already complaining about the sense that it's too narrow. I don't think it is in reality, but I don't know what it is about it. It's a standard road, but it just seems very narrow when you're going down there. People tend to come more to the centre if they're coming backwards and forwards. Maybe they're visitors coming from Botanic Gardens or something. But the other issue is probably more so with, both Spencer and Waters, where it does intersect with Upper Dawson Road during school times at least. That's the school pickup zone, and there's already congestion there from the school there. So I'm just not sure. I think the submitter that raised issues about Ward Street, I think, has a valid issue that it is going to put extra impost onto the flows on that. So I'd just be concerned that we're exacerbating that.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll probably pass a couple of questions to Jamie, given their traffic matters, but just in relation to the car parking, initially when the application was lodged, there was a basement car park for the proposed development, and the car park in that southeastern, no, you're right, that car park in the southeastern corner wasn't proposed there. Through a minor change to the application, that basement car parking was removed, and the reason for it was the cost of the development. So, but yeah, acknowledging there is some car parking challenges there, but
I'll ask Jamie to comment on that. Thanks, Jamie. With the parking, that's it.
Morning, councillors. Mr. Mayor, through the chair, just to reinforce what Brendan was saying there, when you're comparing the full GFA over the site and looking at planning scheme requirements for car parking, it is compliant. So as far as the development car parking requirements go, it does comply. Appreciate car parking in that area is quite congested to a degree, or there's quite a demand for it, but as far as the development goes, it does comply with scheme. Moving forward, as far as Ward Street, Agnes Street, all the surrounding road networks, so there was a traffic impact assessment that was done, looking at capacity of all those road networks. So as an example, Ward Street, it's functioned as minor urban collector, so it's got a capacity of 3,000 vehicles per day. It's actually been constructed as a 10-metre wide carriageway, so it's actually got more capacity than a minor urban collector. But if you look at a minor urban collector capacity of 3,000 vehicles a day, current traffic counts on that road are 950 or thereabouts. So it's well within the capacity of that actual link. The same with all the surrounding road networks. So the capacity of the existing network, it far exceeds what's actually using that network. Probably something to bear in mind too is this increase in development is generating an additional 9 vehicles in and 9 vehicles out in peak hour. So very, very minimal traffic demand on top of what's there at the moment. As part of the traffic impact assessment, they looked at turn warrants to see whether there's an auxiliary left that might be required in any instances and any upgrades required, and it's nowhere near triggering any additional turn warrants for the access into that application. So it's well within the capacities of that existing network as it stands.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Councillor Smith, Kirkland, and then Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can I just ask, Jamie, what did you mean by 9 vehicles in and 9 out?
So basically, there's a demand that's calculated in accordance with the guidelines for the proposed use and the number of beds, and it calculates a maximum of 18 vehicles in peak hour. So if you break that down, that's 9 vehicles coming in and 9 vehicles coming out in peak area that this additional development will create. That's what the demand will create.
Just through the chair, I just find that hard to believe because 90 beds and you've got staff, contractors and visitors all coming and going. You've got staff 24/7, and I just, that area is just horrendous. So, been at the Mater Hospital quite a bit this year myself, And even Jessie Street, you know, trying to park there to go to the doctor's surgeries there, it's just unbelievable. It would be the worst parking area in the whole of Rockhampton. And everyone will tell you that and agree with that. And, you know, more and more older people are going to the hospital. You go into the car park there, even at the Mater, no parking out on the street. They've got to walk a lot further. And I just see the same problem with this building there, you know, with that new facility. It's great to have that new facility to cater for an extra 90 beds, but, you know, the parking will be a problem, absolutely.
But it's
And I know what our planning
compliant.
scheme says, but I having been in that portfolio before, I never agree with the parking. I always think it should be more.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kirkland?
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Seems to be a bit of a theme going, because that's certainly where my questions were landing, was around the car parking. I also wanted to ask about the 34 Bay area there. Do you think that formalising that would garner any extra car parks than what's currently being used for? Because it's you know, it's not formalised at the moment, but would formalising it actually get some more parks?
Yeah, through the chair, it's difficult to say. At least, you know, it formalises it. It may provide additional car parking spaces, just because cars might be parking a bit more sensibly. But I couldn't give you a definite answer to that,
I have
Councillor.
a second question, if I may, Mr Mayor. It is also around during construction and the interruption that's going to be caused to this entire network here. What sort of mitigation is being put in place to relieve the congestion of parking spaces? Because obviously people are still going to want to get to the hospital and nursing home or the rest. Is there any measures being put in place?
Through the chair, so just to clarify, that's during the construction phase of the proposed development. Typically what you'd expect is if there's any disruptions to the local road network, the construction company would do some sort of traffic management plan, and I expect that to go through a separate application process in council if they have to close parts of roads or block off certain car parking spaces, but inevitably there's going to be some disruption to the road network during the construction phase.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. I'm just curious as to whether that 34 car park could be increased, and as if it's formalised, if that were to happen, it might help alleviate some of that congestion during construction and then provide more parks for once the facility is finished. And whether they want to work in collaboration with the Mater, because obviously people going to the Mater would want to use that car park as well. That's just my comments and thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Rutherford?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just sort of going on from that, my question was, can that 34 Bay car park not be extended right down to the boundary at Jessie Street and made to be a bigger car park there?
Yeah, just through the chair. Those 34 car parking spaces comply with what's required in the planning scheme. That's why that was proposed by the applicant. There obviously is additional space there to possibly extend that car parking space, or request the applicant through conditions of approval to provide an updated plan with additional car parking spaces. Given it would exceed the car parking rate under the planning scheme, they may have grounds to challenge that, but it is an option.
So, Mr Mayor, I did wonder too, and I don't know whether to Brendan or Jamie, that a number of the properties on the site would have been residents at some point, are now doctors' surgeries or the like. So have we looked at the car parking required for that purpose as opposed to the fact that they appear residential?
Through the chair, so council, that was just some of the existing rooms, is that?
Yes.
That hasn't been considered in the application or the car parking rates. So we've just looked at what's been proposed as part of this application.
And Mr Mayor, that was, I wondered whether the fact that those buildings inside there actually have a purpose that requires parking, majority parking, more than what residential does, whether that actually triggers a greater requirement for parking.
Jamie?
Yeah, we haven't given consideration to a residential development on that site, I suppose. We've only looked at the parking requirements for the proposal as it
Sorry, no, I think you've misunderstood. So a number of those properties on Jessie Street would have appeared, they would have been residents at some point. They are now surgeries, doctor surgeries, which, and most of this parking down, the informal parking down on Jessie Street is parking that services those areas. So those customers, I guess, need parking regardless of any future development. So does that not trigger a greater need for more parking?
It would, yeah.
So we would have a case to request more parking from the applicant.
Through the chair, we can only assess what's been proposed as part of this application. So to the extent that another part of the site's been used for something it wasn't initially approved for or anticipated for, there may be grounds to pursue it that way to get them to provide additional car parking spaces specifically for that use. But in terms of the residential care facility and what's been proposed, we can't really have regard to another use for part of the site for, what was formerly a residence, maybe a doctor's surgery now. So.
Yeah, and I understand, and this is such a needed development. It really is, but it's no point having a development when you can't accommodate visitors to the site, so we do need to look at that.
Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and I agree this is a needed development. The question I've got is, it only looks like there's only 2 disability access parking. Should there be more?
Through the chair, the requirements for disabled car parking come at the building application stage. So as part of the planning stage, we just look at car parking in total, which includes disabled car parking. So while it might mainly show 2 on this, if additional are required as part of the building application, they'll need to be provided within what's shown on this plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mathers and Councillor Fisher.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I agree in regards to this is certainly a well-needed development, and I certainly agree that, parking's always been an issue there, but if the development application is already compliant, I don't think we're in a position to be able to ask the developer to supply extra car parks for neighbouring properties, because that's what we're asking them to do. They're compliant for their building application. If we try to push for more parking, and I agree we need more parking, we're asking them to pay for more parking for neighbouring. I don't see how we can do that.
Thanks, Brendan. Evan or Doug on that one? I think you're hearing the theme. Parking is going to be the issue, and understanding that this application is compliant with their requirements. How can we request or ask for more consideration around the parking?
Through the chair, there's probably a couple of options. One is to lay the matter on the table and take it back to the applicant and consult with them. The alternative is to amend the conditions of approval and request them to provide an updated site plan showing additional on-site car parking spaces. As Councillor Mathers suggested, if we did that, it'd be beyond what's required by the planning scheme, so they may have grounds to challenge it. So those
may be beneficial then to lay the matter on the table and go and do some further consultation and see if there's other
I'd be a bit nervous, Mr Mayor, sorry. Be a bit nervous in trying to amend the conditions of approval on the run of the meeting because they're intertwined between a number and the actual plan itself, so it could get all fuddled up and just.
Okay, right. Got a few further questions, Councillor Wickerson, and then we might go from there. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fisher, then Councillor Wickerson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I do acknowledge that this application ticks all the boxes, but also there are organisations like Sisters of Mercy and that have a community obligation as well. And I think if there was a chance to lay it on the table, and that's what I would really like to move, that discussions with the Sisters of Mercy, I think that they would understand that as well, and come back with a amended, or see if they would come back with an amended plan, but allow them to have some consideration about the extent of the parking.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Probably through you to Jamie, just firstly, just to clarify, Jamie, the the gross floor area you're speaking of, matching up with the parking, is that for the whole site? Or it's the whole site, not just this new development?
That's right, Councillor Wickerson. So they've looked at the whole site and the GFA associated with that, and then done a car parking calculation based on that.
Okay, no, thank you. And Mr Mayor, the second point, I think Councillor Kirkland made this too, during construction, and I don't specify what I'm thinking of, but it's near Brown Park, which was just recently opened up. There were some issues with that too, probably going back that there wasn't as good a community engagement with the local residents as it could have been. It came later after there was issues raised, particularly during construction, that there's a big impact on the local community, that there's got to be a lay-down area for material, there's trucks and cranes and all sorts of other construction going on which will impact on local residents. So this would ensure that the contractors or the principals did put in both a traffic management plan around the site during construction and also a fairly thorough community engagement so people know what they're about to get into. But before it raises its head, we've got to go back and do it anyway. Be a bit proactive about it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all, mate. Thank you.
Comments on that, Brendan?
Probably no specific comments on that through the chair. Like I said, anything to do with the traffic management during the construction phase is dealt with separately. So.
Yep. Councillor Kirkland?
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just coming on off the back of what Councillor Wickerson has just said, that community consultation be completely extended definitely to all those doctors' surgeries that Councillor Rutherford mentioned earlier, that they've got the capacity to tell people coming to the surgery, look, parking is an issue, this is where you've got to go, so that people aren't arriving 5 minutes before and getting exacerbated because of these interruptions.
Okay, councillors, we've got a mover, Councillor Fisher, that the matter lay on the table pending further discussion with the applicant regarding provision of additional car parking on the site and for the proposed development. Seconded, Councillor Smith. Sorry, Councillor Kirkland. Council will put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. I think that's a better outcome than trying to do anything on the fly, and then we can gauge it from there. Just worried I might have a conflict in the next one because I used to go there when we were kids and visit relatives and make a nuisance of ourselves, so I hope they don't hold that against us, but anyway. Moving on to the next item, thank you. 10.3, development application for a healthcare pharmacy and works advertising device.
Yes, this is a development application for a material change of use for a healthcare services and shop for a pharmacy and operational works for advertising devices associated with those activities at 90 to 94 High Street at Bersica. So, the site's on High Street. It comprises 3 lots, 2 of them improved by dwellings. It's about 220 metres west of Northside Plaza. The prevailing development west of the side towards Musgrave Street.
Brendan, just Councillor Kirkland.
Just checking with the table. Ultratune. No, it's a different spot.
Right, no worries. Thanks. Sorry, Brendan.
No, you're right. Kick on. Development west of the site's primarily comprised of commercial development, so retail, a mix of retail, offices, childcare centres, and like I said, the Northside Plaza to the west. The area generally to the north, east and south is low-density residential development. So that's just an image of how the proposal may look, but it's generally like an L-shaped configuration new building, facing inwards towards the 34 on-site car parking spaces. It includes a number of tenancies that will accommodate GP consult rooms, physiotherapy consult rooms, allied health, and a pharmacy. So, given the site's in the low-density residential zone, there's a few conflicts with the zone code and the strategic framework, but despite these conflicts, regards to relevant matters, mainly being an overriding community and planning need for the proposed development outweighs those conflicts. There is no or very limited appropriately zoned land in the area that would accommodate for a development of this scale, which is needed to service the community. And therefore we recommend the application be approved subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks, Brendan. Councillor Mathers. Portfolio spokesperson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is another one of those, Mr Mayor, in regards to it's a highly congested road, highly used road, not much parking on it, but once again, it's a facility that that we need, and is, you know, there's definitely need in that area. And at the end of it, you know, the car parks that will be there, yes, they'll be serviced by the people that will be going there, but it'll put us in a better position in regards to having more car parks there, but just maybe just not enough, but it's compliant. So I'm happy to move that one.
You happy to move, Councillor Mathers? Do you have the seconder? Councillor Lutcham. No further questions. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors.
Thank you. Council, we move to the next item, and then we might call for a recess then, which is the proposed animal inspection program. So I'll ask Doug to present that one. What was that one?
So thank you, Mayor and Councillors. It's reports for the selective inspection program we run every year. This is for dogs that haven't been re-registered by the 31st of August. We run a two-month program where we go and knock on first of all we give the owners a phone call, give them the opportunity to pay over the phone, and then we go knock on the door. Last year there were about 4,000 dogs at this stage that weren't renewed, and during the inspection period we got 1,000 of those renewed. But just as importantly, or probably more importantly, we were able to clear up some records. So there's dogs no longer there. So it's a very important program that we run. Any questions?
Councillor Smith.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just from my experience with people not re-registering, that if the animal's passed away, it's very traumatic for a lot of people to give evidence that your dog's deceased. And I wondered if it's still the same process. They've either got to have a vet's certificate or a vet's invoice where the dog was euthanased, or sign a stat back. Whichever way, it is stressful. Like, we don't just take it on their word that the dog has deceased.
Yeah, so through the chair, I fully appreciate it's a very stressful time when dogs are euthanised or deceased. We will just take something in writing that the dog is no longer their dog, no longer lives there, or has been put down, and that will be enough for our records.
Councillor Kirkland.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. Not necessarily related, but not related, is the fact that my understanding as a dog owner is that once you've paid your registration, it's a perpetual tag that's got on the dog collar now. We don't receive a new tag. Just wondering if there's any media around that, because sometimes there might be some confusion that they don't need to actually pay anymore either.
Yes, so through the chair. No, we don't put any comments about that. People are told the first time they register their dog, but if we're asked, we answer that question. I guess, yeah. It's a hard one to relay the information to people and then for them to remember a couple of years down the track.
Traditionally, you would look at your dog's collar and go, oh, that's right. Well, this is for some, clearly, not all. You would go by what tag's on your dog collar, whether you've actually paid it or not, because, you know, bills happen, things get passed, whatever. So I'm sure that you take all that into consideration. That's the only reason I mentioned it.
Yeah, it's actually probably a little bit easier for local laws officers too. They can tell the colour of the tag.
What colour
right.
it was, yeah.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
But no. Extra waste, we don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just commenting on that, Mr Mayor, when that came in, the lifetime tags, there was a lot of media on it at the time. Probably the only confusion with pensioners used to be free, their dogs, and now they've got to pay, but even when it was free, they've still got a tag to last forever. But if they're anything like my dog, they keep losing them, and I keep having to pay for new tags anyway. So I think it's a really good system, because you saw dogs with about 7 or 8 tags on it, because people never used to take the old one off. Very colourful.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mathers?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I spoke to Doug about this one in depth yesterday in regards to the importance of the program, and the office do feel that it's a very important program for them to be able to do just to keep their data up to date and the database, so I'm happy to move. Yeah,
Thank you. Again, I think this is one that's been undertaken by council over a number of years, and it has proven its value, and one that you know it helps when we animal control when we didn't have it previously. There was a huge reduction in the issues and the workload on the council staff in that animal control space, so it does have a definite benefit. So move Councillor Mathers. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Smith, put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Doug. We won't stand. Councillors, I might move that we have a 15-minute recess and take a break. So those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We'll come back at 25 to. Thanks, Ken.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing.
Okay, thanks, councillors. We'll resume the meeting. We'll move on to our next item, which is 10.5, the 5th Annual Open Junior Golf Championships. Kerry, would you like to present that one, please?
Morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. I apologise in advance if I start coughing. It's not COVID, it's asthma. This report was laid on the table from the last meeting. It's for the 5th Australian Open Junior Golf Championship, being the venue host is the Rockhampton Golf Club, applying for some support from council. Just if you had any questions that you wanted me to address.
I think the questions were the way that the organisers were running and whether the cost to that, Councillor Rutherford, and I think the main concern where the money was being spent. So I think they're saying it's in the course preparation, but again, I think my understanding of it is the recognition that the event would have being an international style event that we've haven't had that opportunity in a regional area before, where it's more prestigious clubs in the southeast area that have these types of tournaments that's there. But Councillor Rutherford, the questions on that one were mainly about the funding and.
Yes, Mr Mayor, along the same lines as what you were just discussing. It's actually a sporting merchandise company that runs this event, and it's not on the Australian golfing calendar. So they call it an international event. When I looked, there was only 2 children from overseas that had registered as such, and I think one of them may have been under 10 or something. So I'm just a little concerned about this. I'm a little concerned, when we talked the other day about with the new guidelines going, if it was over 500 participants, $10,000, if it's under that, maybe a lesser amount of money, because $10,000 is a lot of money here for something that I think at max can take 100 entries. And so far, if there was 87 entries, I think 84 of them were sort of within Australia, and by far the majority were Queensland based. So, and it does worry me that this is not on the Australian golf calendar. it doesn't sit within the parent organisation's calendar.
Through the chair, Councillor, the Australian Golf Federation and the US Kids Golf Australia, they're two different organisations within the junior golf area. They both run different styles of elite events, with Australian Golf working with kids playing for different holes and ability divisions, and the US Kids Australia going for a more age-based system, and they don't usually advertise each other's events. I sort of had a look too, and I noticed that it's mainly all of the Australia Golf events that are on their calendar. The golf club, we have supported the golf club since 2013-14 with sponsorship for the Ian Way Toyota Pro-Am, and over those years we've given like close to $23,000. The events, like Mr Mayor was saying previously, the events are usually held in major cities. They've opened the Australian branch in 2010, so they've been in Australia since 2010. They didn't have an event last year, but 2020 they had it at Coolangatta, and then previous years in Sydney. So it's a bit of a coup for the golf club here in Rocky to be chosen to be the venue host for this year. And even though we couldn't sort of support their full request of $21,000, the recommended amount was to sort of assist with bringing their course up to that elite standard for the championship. So that's what the recommendation was based on, and the criteria that was assessed at,
Yeah. Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering if there is an Australian group of this US Golf. I couldn't find it on the websites, but the registration has to be paid in US dollars. So I don't understand that at all. You know, if it's Australian based and recognised, why is registration in US dollars?
I'm not sure how it internally works, but I believe that there's a Brisbane director in Brisbane for the Australian branch, as far as I know.
Mr Mayor, can I move an alternate motion, please? And it's basically the same, but the amount be reduced to $5,000. In lieu of really not knowing too much about it, I certainly don't want to squash the event at all, but I do feel $10,000 is too much money for this event.
Councillor Smith?
Oh, Mr Mayor, I was just going to say, this is a foundation, so probably that's why they're looking for more sponsorship. But like, I know Kerry just said we've given $23,000 to golf competitions in the last few years, but compared to other sports, we don't donate a lot to golf. It used to be an older person's game, and now more and more kids are playing golf. And I used to play social golf in another life. But anything that gets kids off their computers and out to the great outdoors is a good thing. But also the Rocky Golf Club is just beautiful. It's a beautiful, you know, would be good for tourism, for people coming from other areas to see what we've got here.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mayor. I support Councillor Rutherford's alternate motion just to reduce the amount. I want to see new events come, but through you, Mayor, to Kerry, do we know if there's any, and great that we've got an inaugural event here because this could grow into more things, but there's also a chance that they're coming to Central Queensland because other options maybe weren't available with COVID, and who knows what else. So do we know if there's any future commitment or anything locked in? Is this, you know, the first of a series of 3, so we'll get them back for next year and the year after? It may well grow. And because linked in with that, I was looking, as Councillor Rutherford said, I'm looking 80%, so it's about 80 people that may come to Rockhampton for a 2-day event, so that's 80 nights accommodation. It doesn't really stack up for the full amount of 10,000. That's why I'm sort of leaning towards that.
So, yeah, not that I'm aware of, Councillor Wickerson, about future events, no. But it's probably just more of an opportunity for the golf club to showcase their venue as well for these elite championships. Seeing, I think that the most that they've had is Pro-Am, which is probably why they haven't had to require assistance with getting their course to that elite standard. This is, Australian Open for the juniors, And, they did say about that 80% players, so there's a lot of families and that will attend this event, even though it's focused on the youth.
Okay, no, thank you. Well, hopefully it grows in the future with this initial sponsorship.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wickerson. So no further questions. Can I have a mover and a seconder with regards to the recommendation? Move Councillor Rutherford, seconded Councillor Smith. Well, that's the 5,000, yeah. Yep. So I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? I'll record mine against it if I could, please. I just think it's an opportunity we had to showcase it and have the field in pristine, of course in pristine position, but anyway. Moving on, councillors, we'll item 10.6, a sponsorship for the Land Forces Australia, Indo-Asia Pacific International. Greg, I'll hand over to you. Great opportunity this one, councillors.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, as the Mayor said, great opportunity. Land Forces is the largest defence conference run in Queensland each year. There are a number of others held in other places, but and probably the reason for wanting or proposing to sponsor this Land Forces conference is it's very much around what we do here in Rockhampton. Our attraction of future land forces, our training of land forces, is where our focus is. Of course, we still have the amphibious side and the Air Force side, but our focus really is on attraction and maintaining a land force training facility and attracting land forces and troops to the area. So this event in October, this is actually for a sponsorship of a lunch. We will also get a pod or a stand, a minor size there with a small presence. We won't be like Queensland Mining Expo or anything like that, but just continuing to put our message out there. We also will have a number of attendees at the lunch. We're hoping that the Chief of Army and a number of other senior Army officials will be in attendance at the lunch. It won't get confirmed until later, of course. Yeah, so that's really the proposal. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, look, I'm happy to move, and I believe the benefits, and after attending last year's Expo, was just understanding what the scope in defence could possibly be and what opportunities there are for council going forward. And with the review from the federal government, this really does buy into that and that networking, and we've made a lot of headway in that space, and especially through our CQ Rock strategy, and also the plan is to invite our neighbouring mayors to the forum as well, to the luncheon as well, to really put CQ on the map down there while this conference is on. And I've had indication from the other mayors in the area that they'd like to participate as well. So I think it's a great opportunity to network and really put Rockhampton and CQ in the defence space going forward. I think it's an opportunity there. We want to diversify ourselves and looking how we can take advantage of what we have in that space as far as the opportunities for our manufacturing and job prospects. With a lot of the mining resource area now actually compliant or actually doing military defence work currently, so it dovetails into their operations and how we can provide sustained growth and job security in that area going forward. So this is just one component of how we need to, similarly what we've done with the resources, now look at what we do with the defence space as well. So I think we need to be more involved in there going forward, and I think the dividends will come with that work. Got a couple of questions. Happy to move. Second, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Latcham, and Councillor Mathers, and Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You're very supportive of this. Defence is obviously an opportunity for our region to expand in, and but my question, I guess, is I noticed in the report there'll be 3 people going to this event, and whether there's any, Greg, if there's any indication, will that include the Mayor possibly or who do you envisage going?
Yeah, sure. From that side of things, and since this proposal has been received, I've also negotiated an additional 3 spaces as well. So from our side of things, from Rockhampton side of things, it would be the Mayor, myself, and probably an economic advisor or manager.
Yeah,
and so I've secured 3 other seats just to ensure that if the other mayors or deputy mayors from CQ Rock wanted to attend, there's space there. So.
And I think this is the toe in the water to continued approach and recognition of where we're at. I spoke to Jenny Hill this morning, and again, opportunity there maybe for Jenny to attend as well, and their experience with defence and military in their town and how they work with Charters Towers is quite something we need to understand and take any advice or opportunities there that we can get from what's happening in that space to assist us going forward. So it's a great opportunity, councillors.
It's a good point. Sorry, Mayor, to butt in and councillors. The City of Townsville have sponsored certain parts of this event for many years now, so it will be great to see the City of Rockhampton's name also on the program and all other sponsorship opportunities that are there, because at the moment, if you look at the program, City of Townsville's name's all over it, so it'll be good just to have our name on that list.
And probably just to aside, councillors, I also spoke to Jenny about the Singaporeans and their exercises here, how we can jointly support their exercises going forward, as that's there's a real tie now with their operations out of Greenvale and also Shoalwater Bay. So great opportunities there again to promote and support that investment coming into the region to our economy as well. Councillor Mathers and Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, just to comment, just wanted to say that, I fully support your push to engage with the ADF and do whatever we can to take advantage of whatever opportunities may come forward. So, and I think this is just one of those that we need to make sure that we're seeing at to keep Rocky Regional Council at the front of their mind.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And it's not I support that, but it's a CQ push rather than a council one. So I think that's the relevance out of that. But this is putting Rocky at the site and then making sure that, like Greg said, Townsville's got their presence there. We'll join in that space. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, just echoing all of those comments about the significance of having skin in the game at these events that show, and as Councillor Mathers has rightfully said, making sure that we have Rocky at the front of their mind where they're seeing us in these sponsorship positions. I just have a financial type of question, 2 questions in fact. I just wanted to know if that $8,000 sponsorship, there'll be additional to pay for the people who would be representing council to go down, accommodation, flights and all that sort of thing is an additional expense. Will that be coming out of AR's budget?
Correct. So the defence sector became an industry pillar for us in the budget, in this current budget. So going forward, I see this as a long-term journey that we will have a set defence budget that covers things like that. So the answer is yes, Councillor Kirkland. It's within the Advanced Rockhampton budget, but we now have that, like resources, like agriculture, like renewable energy. We actually have a set budget for each of those key industry pillars to ensure that we're maximising our opportunities along the way.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I would hate to think that that was something you hadn't considered. The second question is really more of an opinion type thing, in that the $8,000 allocation for sponsorship of a lunch in comparison to other things such as Bowen Basin Mining Club and those other things that we've sponsored, in your opinion, is that a fair expense?
I'd probably compare defence to mining. They are more expensive than other sectors. They see bigger checkbooks, I suppose, from, in this case, big military consultants, and also in mining, they see it from big mining companies. So it is probably more than we would pay, like in an ag sector sponsorship, but it is the market rate that we're paying. So, this is for lunch. I know that Naya Group are paying $100,000 for their sponsorship of the event. So,
okay, that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
So okay, councillors. I think this opportunity is one that we really we do take advantage of, and again, being more diversified in that space. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that. Those in favour, those opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Thanks, Greg. Moving on to 10.7, the sponsorship opportunity for innovation and entrepreneurship community. So, thanks very much, Bingham.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. Following the recent closure of the Smart Hub, previous members and mentors of the Smart Hub are proposing to establish a not-for-profit group to support startup and foster innovation within the Rockhampton region. The group have requested support in the find of in-kind sponsorship by provision of Smart Hub's intellectual property, and that includes the Smart Hub branding and the logo, the marketing collateral and technology and other equipment. Annexure 2 of the confidential attachment for the sponsorship proposal provides a specific list of the items that they have requested. You will note that they have asked for membership contact details and mailing information, but due to information privacy, we would seek to offer that we would provide information to those existing members in that mailing group on their behalf, should they wish to reach out to them rather than providing that information. I should also add that there is a recently formed boutique co-working space which has been established by one of the previous members, and that's where they're seeking to run the proposed Smart Hub operations from. Were there any questions?
No, look, I'm happy to move. I think it's something there. Unfortunately, we were tough and difficult decision to close the Smart Hub, and one that didn't sit easy with any of our councillors. It was forced upon us by the federal assistance grant reduction in funding, and we had to cut the cloth to minimise the impact to the ratepayers. So this is something we'd asked from the group originally, but it's great to see that's come to the fore now, and I think it's only prudent that council supports that going forward. So got a number of lights on, so I'll go around the table and we'll go from there. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've got kind of two things going in my mind at the moment. Obviously, Smart Hub was a good thing for the region, and unfortunately, as you mentioned, it was a budget constraint. My first part of my thinking is it something we could store until the budget position gets better and then we could start it up again? Is possibly, and then you've got all this equipment, it's already there ready to go once our budget allows for it. The second part of my thinking is more along the lines that I've noticed on social media. There was a promoting of another council as opposed to Rockhampton Regional Council, which I was a little bit disappointed in, that they weren't promoting our council, which is where it all started from. And my concern, I guess, is if we would go down the pathway of giving them this equipment, what kind of stops them then moving it to another council?
So, through the Chair, as part of this, we would prepare a deed of transfer with inputs from our in-house legal. So some of that would deal with the matters of transferring the materials and the equipment and the sub-licensing of the intellectual property. So it would be that we would be offering to sub-license the brand, so that wouldn't allow them to then on-sell the logo and the branding. And we would also put conditions in there to state that in the event that it wasn't successful or they sought to close, it would come back to council rather than being able to sell that to others.
Okay, I'm very happy with that.
And council, as far as the budget goes, we're still $3.7 million in deficit, and there's no light in the end of the tunnel until future years with a lot of the capital works that we've got in the moment. So unfortunately, we've got to tighten the belt, and this is one of the really difficult and tough decisions that council had to make in that process. So,
if I could just add, sorry, through the Chair, that in terms of that, we had considered that what the future use of that might be for council, and we considered that was probably some time down the track that we would likely refresh a new brand, new imaging, because it would at that point need to be done anyway. So we had considered that as part of
and
this.
Opportunities there, whether the other levels of government want to support us in that space going forward, is something there that we could approach in that time. Good question. Thank you. Councillor Mathers and Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I'm a little bit confused with this one, Mr Mayor, for the simple reason that, it's great to see that they've got together, but this is exactly the type of proposal we're asking them to put forward to us when they were still at the Smart Hub, at Customs House. So I'm just a bit confused to where this has come from.
Councillor, and probably just on that, I think the group and their advocacy was hoping the council would change their mind and keep the Smart Hub operating. So I think that was always a vision there. But I don't think there's a lot of thought about what happens if it is, was to close. So.
Yeah, and just through you, in regards to the equipment as well, does that go? Is that the same thing? If this was to close up or wasn't to be successful, would the equipment still come back to council as well?
Yeah, through the Chair, yes, that's correct. That's the way we would approach it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Wickerson.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Probably exactly the same questions. What's to lock them in so that they stay in the Rockhampton region and not just the minute they get all this stuff, collateral, that then they relocate to another shire near us. And also share the frustration that this is what we wanted to see. They could have had all this and somewhere to reside instead of renting this place, and the name and everything. That's what we wanted to see. But anyway, that's their business, I guess. So support it, but once I happily support it. Only question I had probably to Evan. I'm trying to imagine some of the gear that they have, and I've seen some of it. The equipment. This is the hard technology and whatever, not the branding. Is that something that council could use in its units? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, through the chair. A lot of this was purchased through grant funding, so we would be seeking that it would be preferred to support a like-for-like usage rather than council using it in other operations. So it probably is surplus to what we would have normally purchased, for council's operations.
Yeah. Okay. No, satisfied with that. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I should also add that some of this equipment is obviously approaching end of life as well. The Smart Hub has been in operation for the past few, it's 4 to 5 years old, some of this equipment that's been purchased, so it'll be given to them as is without any further support on that.
Okay, Councillor Mathers, did you have another question?
Yes, sir. Just to comment, Mr Mayor, in regards to, but I mean, I understand some of it's been bought through funding, but some of it's been paid for by ratepayers as well, but we're still looking at handing over that equipment to a commercial entity, a private commercial entity that, but they're still supporting businesses that will be earning income from the use of that equipment.
So just through the chair, it is actually, they're establishing a not-for-profit organisation rather than a commercial entity, and obviously with the intention to support the Rockhampton region with startups and innovation.
Okay, I think we've exhausted the questions there. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Wickerson, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? To record your vote against that, Councillor? No. Okay, thanks very much for that. Ross? On to item
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
10.8, the council decision-making structure review.
Yep, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a topic we discussed a couple of weeks ago with council. I'm just formalising that in this report. And also attached to it a meeting schedule for the remainder of the year. The outcome of that change, the minor change we are proposing in that schedule is that we'll separate the committee meetings, one proposing fortnight Tuesdays, in the afternoons or after those meetings we'll continue with the briefing sessions, which we think have been quite successful. And that's as per the recommendation.
Thanks, Ross. Councillors, questions? Someone? No lights on. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Wickerson. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Councillor Rutherford, wish to record? Yes. Councillor Rutherford, record her vote against the motion. The motion's carried. Thank you. Item the 10.9, the Mount Morgan Water Pipeline Project. Councillor Smith has a conflict in that one. We'll ask Andrew to present the report.
I like all the names we're currently having now, Mr Mayor. Like we've got an NMWSSP, and we've got an NRSTP and a Glenmore.
I met with the Army Reservists the other day, and I thought we had the acronyms down pat. No chance. Left me bemused about what we were talking about after 10 minutes, but anyway. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Mayor, councillors. So this report presents adjustments made to the proposed Mount Morgan pipeline alignment. With the commencement of the project, we've again assessed the alignment, which was proposed through using the old rail corridor up through the Razorback and into Mount Morgan. This assessment has identified a number of construction time-related concerns. We don't own the rail corridor and have to obviously work through that process of acquiring those parcels of land, and there is some private land holdings in that corridor as well. We'd have to construct an in-service road access, construct a haul road to construct the pipeline, and then obviously a service access road through that site. Which would be problematic. There is a significant environmental overlays or a number of overlays, endangered plants, and I think it's a wildlife corridor through that Razorback section. There's sections of cuttings in the rail corridor that are very narrow, and there's a major Telstra infrastructure which is laid on the same alignment. So the new alignment proposed retains the existing alignment from Gracemere up to the Razorback Road at the intersection of Poison Creek Road, We then intend to use the existing road reserve to go up through the Razorback Road into Mount Morgan via Creek and Burr Street, under the Burnett Highway, up East Street Extended, across the Deer River into Black Street, and then finishing at the South Reservoir. So obviously this route has advantages over the original proposal. Majority of it is all in road reserve. There is a little bit of unallocated state land that we have to work through, but the majority of it is in road reserve. It's a more direct route. It saves about 1.5 k's in pipeline construction. There will be the ability to have a takeoff and directly charge the North Reservoir. And will not require a construction of new access roads and service roads. There will obviously be further adjustments as we do the works, safety and minor items that that come across during the construction, but that should only be just minor adjustments. Thank you.
Questions, Councillor Rutherford, then Councillor Kirkland, portfolio chair.
A couple if I could.
Yeah.
Andrew, are we going through any private residence
No.
with this new alignment?
No, so this is totally in road reserve.
Yep. So the East Street Extended, and I'm trying because I don't ever put names on streets. It's quite steep.
It has a little bit of
Yep. So
incline.
there's no issues with that.
No, we've recently run a fire mains through there, I think, in the last few years. So.
Yep. Alrighty. And when you say the road alignment, is it road or is it footpath?
The road reserve, so some instances it might be within the road, but we're obviously targeting outside the actual road, the sealed section of the road.
So footpath,
yeah.
basically. And it's a minor thing, Mr. Mayor, but I just wondered how many trees that will affect. Are we going to be removing trees on people's footpaths if there are?
I don't believe so, Councillor. We are getting the corridor alignment surveyed at the moment, but I don't believe there'll be too many.
Let's have a look at that, Andrew,
Yep,
just
for
to
sure.
check and see if there any need to be removed. Then obviously we look to reinstate somewhere.
Yep.
else.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm just trying to get on top of different things and trying to see where they were all heading. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Andrew, I think in previous discussions we've talked about the alignment having the opportunity to address some minor road anomalies along the way. Are there any of those reflected in this report, or is that something that we do as we go along? Can you just elaborate on that a little for me?
Yes, through the chair, Councillor, we're still, I suppose, in the detailed design stage. So we are, working through exactly where that alignment occurs. There is, I think, there has been some work done on the jump up of the Razorback in relation to blind spot funding. So there may be an opportunity there to widen and help with the black spot of the part of the road. So
I see Peter. I might ask Peter just to comment on that one, if I could, please.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, we're looking at the budget within civil operations, and there's a design being looked at that we'll link it into this project. So it'll be, while the road's closed at times for this work, it would be ideal that the contractor could do it at the same time. So, and there is some budget provision for it.
Okay,
That's really good.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. I see that there's a positive impact to the budget, which is with a reduced length. Hopefully that can be recognised. I had the question at ABC Radio this morning, just if that money was to come back, where would that go? Back to the grant funders, or would that come back to the council? And I said, look, there's contingency in the project. At this early stage, I'm not sure what those dollars would be, or whether there would be any benefit or not. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. And I mentioned that the increase in wages and also material costs as well. So, yeah. Okay, now just probably the further question though is about the consultation with the community or updating the community on the project. I think we have this and the now Morgan Pool that we need to get a bit more, refine a bit more of the information before we go back to those communities. So is there anything from the pipeline project perspective that we need more time in that space at all? Andrew or Peter?
No, Mr Mayor, we're anticipating the design, we'll have designs prepared for our community engagement. I think anticipated sometime mid-September. So
And I think that that thought was to do both projects with the community at the one time rather than having to do it in two separate presentations. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Kirkland.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanting to reiterate that this report, this refinement of the pipeline project is actually, the alignment achieves a number of positives, and so it's a really good win for everybody. I'm happy to move to receive that today.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, Councillor Mathers and Councillor Fisher.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Just probably more an operational one through you to Andrew, if that's right. Andrew, the buffer tank that is there near at the start of Razorback, I understand the extra pumping station. Can you just explain to me what's the purpose of the buffer tank? Does it just hold volume there to keep the pipe full, or what's the?
Yeah, I think sorry, I'm not a hydraulic engineer, and I might have to refer to Peter, but it's there, I suppose. The water's pumped from Gracemere up to there and held, and it's part of just a hydraulic modelling to stop water hammer. There's an actual break in the line, and it helps, I suppose, reduce pressures, and the ability maybe to use a lesser grade pipe in the lines for the pipe work to accommodate a lower pressure.
Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Fisher.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Actually, this is a really good report, and probably you get those questions that you think the next time you're going to have to ask about the project, and it's kind of addressed all of those. One area there that it was listed as those environmentally sensitive areas that you're going through. Those could even be turned into a positive as well, because okay, you are going to have a few locations that these species are vulnerable. That this would be a great project there with Rockhampton Regional Council's nursery and the environmental team of actually building up some of those taking seeds of those species, and not only for the rehab of the site, but actually a couple of these varieties would be great to actually see in the Botanic Gardens, and for that preservation of the species. And that could also be one of those highlights as part of the project of actually telling the community, these are some of the things that we're going to achieve in the project. I was involved with the Curragh Mine going back 12, 13 years ago when they had to move Blackwater Creek, and they took a similar sort of process, and did not have any issues as far as the sensitivity of protesters or that, but actually the Central Highlands community or Blackwater community actually gained for some of that work. So it has been done before, but this would be a really good project to just highlight that not only are we building a pipeline, not only have we got to do a bit of this work, but we're actually going to preserve some of those vulnerable plant species and actually have them more accessible to the public.
Yeah, Ken. Thanks, Ken.
Just through the chair, this alignment now doesn't touch any environmental sensitive areas. So the whole purpose of this was to remove any access of pipeline through private property and any environmental protected areas. So whilst that we may have had to do that in the original design, right now we are just going up the road / footpath where we can do pretty well everything
within that corridor. Yeah,
it's all pre-cleared.
It's all pre-cleared.
Yeah, and make some savings in the process. So it's a great outcome. Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Mathers, Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, if I could second Councillor Kirkland's motion, and with great excitement, second, but also thank you to the officers for this great outcome. You know, I thought the other one was okay, although it had some challenges. This new route it just seems to tick all the boxes, so it's very exciting to see it here.
No, that's good. So just one further one that before that consultation in Mount Morgan is that there's a lot of questions about offtakes, and I think people have got the impression that it's a pipeline the same size Rocky to Yeppoon, and its ability to be able to have offtakes along that. So I think we need to resolve that and get that information out to the community, because I have a number of questions from people along that corridor asking for water supply.
Probably, Mr Mayor, in general speaking, any rising main, you can't have offtakes on it. So this is a rising main, so you can't have an offtake off it. It's got a single purpose.
Yeah, I have developed a response for the community based on that. Varying high pressures, it's just not a feasible option.
No, that's good. We just need to get that one out there early, because I think people have got once they see the shovels and work occurring, that they'll ask when it goes past their properties what's going on there. Okay, councillors, there are no further questions in that space. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. We'll invite Councillor Smith back into the room. Yeah, look, and thank officers for their work and going over that project to look at opportunities there. I know why you've got those conflicts. You go in there and have early smoke. She gets the egg and lettuce one. No, thanks, Councillor Smith. We'll hand over to item 10.10, the summary budget management report for the period ending the 31st of July. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, everyone. So presented to Council this morning is the July report for the summary budget management report. You will note, councillors, that you haven't actually seen the June figures as yet, and haven't seen the annual financial statements also. So what's happening in that space is that we're just finalising our statements and preparation of the financial statements. Our auditors are here, TNR, on site next Monday. So we will have those papers ready for them. We will most likely present them to Council at the 1st September meeting, so that you have an idea of where we've ended up for the financial year of 21-22. So just going back to the 22-23 financial year and the July numbers, so where we would generally be at is 8.3% of the financial year. You'll note that our operating revenue is at 38% of the adopted budget, simply because we've levied our first half-yearly rates and charges, which are out at the moment and due for payment within the discount period by the 7th of September. Other areas, private and recoverable works, are below budget at 5%. However, grants and subsidies are ahead of budget at 24% due to recognition of the unearned revenue from the 21-22 financial year carrying over. Interest revenue is also ahead of budget at 10% due to higher than forecast from the 21-22 financial year. We are seeing some good improvement in interest rates for our money that's on call or in term deposits. So due to the change in interest rates over the last couple of months by the Reserve Bank. All other revenue items are generally within proximity to the budget. In terms of our expenditure, we're at 7% of the adopted budget. Contractors, consultants, materials and plant and asset operational costs are at 2%, 5% and 5% of the budget respectively. This is due mainly to focus of attention on processing our accruals for the 21-22 financial year through the month of July. So I think attention will now revert back to the current financial year in terms of what we will see for payments and how August will look. Admin expenses are at 4% and other expenses are quite low. in terms of our capital revenue, we're seeing 13% of the adopted budget, which is in line with the expectations for the start of the financial year due to the unearned revenue carried over from 21-22. And capital expenditure is at 1% of the adopted budget. This is due mainly to, we did processing of significant capital payments through July. They were accrued expenditure amounts, and that was where the focus of our attention was at that time. Interestingly, Council, we had a budget of 110 million, as you will recall, when we amended the capital budget for 21-22, and we've come in at around 99 in terms of our expenditure for 21-22 capital budget. So we did actually achieve quite a lot of the revised budget, the amended budget amount that we were planning to spend for 21-22. Our investments at the moment are at 120.1 million, which is why we're seeing an increase in our interest earnings in that space, and our loans are at 158.7 million. So, as noted at the bottom of the report, the capital program only saw around 2.5 million spent for July, but we will see those accounts and those balances change. We already have, contracts in place. We're seeing North Rocky Sewage Treatment Plant, Glenmore Water Treatment Plant, and those areas where we've got some big numbers to be spent. So we'll see those grow through the coming months. Any other questions?
Okay, thanks very much, Marnie. Questions, Councillor Kirkland?
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just two quick questions. It's one of those acronym ones. I was like RMPC, Rural Maintenance Program. No, I couldn't remember what it was.
Road Maintenance Performance Contract.
Performance Contract. Okay, thank you. And the second question, just a little down from that, the unearned revenue. Because there was unearned revenue in the 21-22 budget, I was of the impression that even though it sort of sits in bank, it doesn't get included into the 22-23 received revenue. Was that?
Yeah, there are adjustments that take place over the carryovers, Councillor Kirkland, so they adjust whether they're recognised in this financial year or last financial year, depending on when the projects are aligned to, or whether they're for particular items of expenditure. So when we talk about unearned revenue for the 21-22 financial year, we're talking about money that we received in last year, but it's actually attributable to this financial year or future financial years. So, for instance, our waste levy payment that we got in advance, we got it 4 years in advance prior to the conclusion of the financial year. So there was an $8 million amount that came in that wasn't expected prior to the conclusion of the year. So that has to be recognised to be brought forward, because it's not attributable to the 21-22 financial year.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily counting what we've already counted in the 21-22.
It's received. It's accounted for in the future years.
Okay, I get you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillors, I'm happy to move as per the officer's recommendation. Seek a seconder. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour, those opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Marnie. We'll move on to 10.11, the fees and charges 22-23 amendments.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. So these are just some minor amendments, Mayor and councillors, that have been put forward for approval, particularly around the waste space. So when we adopted the 22-23 fees and charges, there was some confusion around some of the terminology that was utilised, so particularly around item 19 that was in our waste area. It referenced light metals excluding refrigerators delivered to the recycling area, to light metals excluding fridges, freezers and air cons delivered to the recycling area. Item 20 also had references that made it confusing, so other metals degassed, free of fluids and tyres. There's been a request to remove the degassed aspect of item 20 to just stop the confusion around that. And item 38 was the change from white goods, fridge, freezer, air conditioner to white goods, fridge, free and freezer and air conditioner free of food and contaminants. So, yeah, when you dump your fridge, don't keep the food in it.
Don't leave it full. Yeah. Okay, look, Marnie,
and sorry, and just in relation to the community services, it was around the hire for Customs House, which wasn't originally incorporated into the fees and charges, and now that the Smart Hub has moved on, that's now been reflected in there.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, I'm happy to move if there's questions. Seconded Councillor Latcham. No questions, I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Marnie. Move on to 10.12, and we'll hand over to Ross for the whole of council corporate performance report for the period ending July 2022. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the monthly corporate report. Mr. Mayor, I'll take it as read and just take questions. I'll probably, some of them we may not be able to answer today, but we'll get back to you. The intent is for the next month, Mr. Mayor, as reported in the earlier report, is that we will bring it, be the same meeting, we'll bring it for reception, and in the afternoon briefing session we'll go into whatever detail council want to go into.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Questions, Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mayor. Probably just comments more than anything through you to Ross. So, Ross, in the communities and culture, there was a couple of things there. Some of the graphs are really hard to read. I think it might have been under major venues, very artistic,
Okay.
and there's no information on the graph at that point, but if there were.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, across the board, can there be some sort of consistency or uniformity with the types of graphs? I understand sometimes they've got to be pie charts or bar graphs or whatever, but it seems to change from section to section.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all readable, but when you're looking at one style and then to another one, some of them, it's only a few of them, I think it might have been lost time injury or something, didn't have a very clear vertical scale on it. The numbers might be on the graph line or whatever. Again, it's just that ease of reading when we've got so much to get through. It just makes it a bit simpler if we're used to seeing that style.
Yeah.
It was just one comment. And under Heritage Village, under major venues, there's a couple of points here about the work that's been done. I was out there the other day, and the car park's looking amazing. They've resealed it, and new line work, as well as all the changes that we looked at about getting vehicles into that overflow car park, and all that seems to work really, really well. The billboard that's out there and the structure itself is fine, but I remember back when we first looked at it, I had a comment that while I wasn't overly excited about the new wording on it, as long as it wasn't green, because there's green trees there, well, now the thing's up there, and it's tree green against green on the background. It's nearly camouflaged that you can't see it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that it's a nice new sign and it'll be fantastic, but when looking at previous things that we've approved here for the zoo and looked at other billboards that Sovereign Hill use, and they're all very exciting because it's such an active place, and then we come to Heritage Village and there's just the word on there, which is all down the fence anyway, so getting into operational areas, but it's just not very exciting for what the place is. And the other point is, I think at a previous report, if not this one, we talked about the fencing that's going around the back of house area, that it was well above the budget we had allowed for it, so that's basically been put on the back burner. I think initially I'd had chats with Alicia, could we not look at something like skilling Queenslanders for work to get a training program out there that comes with a supervisor, it's all properly done to standards. We still have to commit funding for the materials, but we'd do that anyway, but we're basically getting the labour for free. We might get it for budget then, and we still get the fence at the end of it. So I'd just like to revisit that now that we know that to do it commercially, where the contractor is above budget, to go back and see if we can't get it a more creative way. And then you're also providing a practical training opportunity for these maybe long-term unemployed or whatever.
Okay.
And that was all I had.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wilson.
Take
Take
them on
those
board.
notes. Yep. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And through to Ross. Yesterday, Ross emailed through some things I'd highlighted in this report that obviously were missing and stuff, and you've responded back to it.
Yeah.
That's great. Was there a chance to see an updated version, or are you still waiting on information?
I guess those couple of those ones, Councillor, took the line, I'd change them next month, a lot of them, like headings, that sort of stuff. There was one item I didn't get back to, was the daily graph. I've just got back on that one. It was fairly resource intensive, so that was why that's
I'm probably just concerned that if this is a public document, they'll see errors.
Sorry, before it goes posted, sorry, yes, yeah, I get your point. Sorry, cutting in, yep, no, we'll change it before it gets released, yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Kirkland and Councillor Mather.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. First is with regards to the Home Assist program. I'm not sure if you can't answer them. I'm happy for you to take them on notice. The program, is it 100% funded, and like it's 100% funded by state or federal or both?
Sorry, I didn't catch which program?
The Home
Assist.
Home Assist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've just got a couple of questions around that. And so that's one question about the funding of it. And out of the 10,470 current clients, it's predominantly for the aged, this service, is my understanding. And I'm just inquiring how often that database is actually confirmed. You know, obviously, you know, they might have a database that's got all these names on it, but some of them might not drop off the database as they further age. Trying to be very delicate with my wording there.
So sorry.
To those.
Sorry, you want me to answer those?
Yep.
Okay. Through the chair, it is funded, 100% funded, my understanding. The verification, I can't answer that one.
Yeah.
I would assume it is, but I can't say for sure. But I know it's a spread program. I would have to come back to that. Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be great. My second question is just in the average waiting times in the pathways around parks and around irrigation. I'm just wondering if there's any reasons why it takes so long to address irrigation issues, considering the loss of water. I would have thought it would be priority to get straight onto those. Is there anyone that can answer that?
Through the chair, unless Doug's got an answer, we'd have to come back again on that one.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford?
Mr Mayor, just some of the irrigation issues may be a sprinkler head that hasn't popped up, so it's not all about loss of water, so there'll be a whole range of issues in amongst that irrigation. That's why they take different times. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Mathers?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I've actually got two questions. First, and a comment. So, Ross, this report seems to be, it's growing as we're going, but I like it. It's a great snapshot. So great work for you and the team and what you're doing. So thank you for that. First question I've got is in regards to the CCTV, the mobile CCTV. Just wondering, who makes the decisions on the priority and the locations of that? I know it's been getting around. I think it's at the moment they're talking Cedric Arts Park and also Touch of Paradise, but I haven't seen it in North Rocky at all.
Okay. Doug, have you got that one, or you want to come back on that?
I'll give you my...
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, so through the chair, I can double check, but I'm very sure it's Alicia who prioritises where that goes, or the GN Community Services, based on a variety of information that she gets.
Thanks for that, Doug. Is there any way that we could request maybe what that plan looks like, Mr Mayor, as to what that prioritisation is and where it's going to next, just so we've got a little bit of an idea when we're talking to constituents?
Yeah, I can certainly look into that.
So is that okay? Thanks for that. And my last question is in regards to the average waiting time for pathways. What I want to know, it's great to have the graph. We've got something to see that, because once again, I'm a big believer in if we measure it, we can improve it. But have we got any benchmarks, compared to other councils or local government areas that we can benchmark ourselves against to see, because it's great to see these figures, but we really don't know whether that's good, bad or otherwise.
Through the chair.
You are, Ross?
Yeah, it is difficult to benchmark. Is that in the parks ones? Or
Parks, general pathways, requests versus completed. I see that we're sitting at about 45 completion rate. I understand we've got some, holdovers from last month, but there's also they push into next month, so they probably level each other out. I just thought that seems a bit high to me, almost 50% incomplete. But once again, I can't judge that because I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I'll have a look at that.
It could mean how complex the pathway request is as well, and whether it's a longer time to resolve. Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Kirkland?
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. I was umming and ahhing whether to mention. I did speak yesterday to Peter with regards to the stormwater drains and how they collect obviously during high weather events, that impacts the sewage and it increases the sewage, which I was really interested around this. And I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity within the current programs to just, I think, Peter, you were talking about smoking and checking where the leaks are in the stormwater drains and that sort of thing, so as to lessen that load on the sewage treatment plants. It's really, I thought it was a very interesting conversation, which is why I brought it to the table, just to flesh that out a little.
Okay, through the chair, this is in reference to the graph, which is average daily sewage inflows, page 28. And the question was, because the comment says unseasonal rainfall is causing the increased inflows. Right? Yeah.
That's the one.
And I think maybe the council thought that was an error or something, but anyway. So this is quite normal. We do have infiltration of stormwater into the sewage system. It occurs because we have leaking pipes, poor joints, groundwater surcharging, and we also have illegal connections. So that's known, it's not unusual in all sewer systems. Yep, it is. Yep. And we design these systems so that they can cater for 5 times average dry weather. So that's because we know we're going to get it into the system. The little bit about smoking is, and some of the councillors who have been here longer will know that every now and again we do campaigns in suburbs where we go out and review that suburb, we tell the residents that we're coming out to do that, and we effectively use smoke to identify where illegal connections exist. So, and we'll blanket that area, tell them the council normally resolves where we're going to go, we inform, and then we go out and fix. Sometimes we fix the connection, sometimes we require the landowner or the property owner to fix that connection. So that's why inflows are up.
Yeah,
okay?
And unfortunately, it's part of the process there. We have these illegal connections, and people, when they want to divert water away from their properties, they'll slip it into our network. So, which causes a problem further down the network when we have these surcharges done. We did have some photos of some of the illegal connections that had happened over time. I'm not sure whether that's worthwhile sending around to some of the new councillors, Peter.
Yes, I'm going to send that report out just in the information bulletin so you can see. It's a few years ago since we've done it. Was pre-COVID our last time we've done this.
Yeah.
But you'll just see some of the connections and typically, look, the building is finished or the pool or whatever is, when it's completed, it's legal. It's the adjustments that occur later.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just thought it was a really interesting piece of information that was there, because we could see that the spike was there, and I asked the question of Peter, you know, how about the water and how big a difference it makes. Of course, he's reassured me that our sewage treatment plant facilities cater for 5 times that, to allow for exactly this concern where water does come back into the sewage load. Yeah, good conversation. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillors, any further questions to the report? If not, could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that, adopting that? Councillor Kirkland, second Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Ross. Councillors, we move on to item 11.1, notices of motion. So we have a notice of motion from Councillor Shane Latcham. So, Councillor Latcham, you're happy to move. Have we got a seconder with regards to that? Seconded, Councillor Smith. Did you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
I'm happy with it, Mr Mayor. I think it's self-explanatory. It's one of those important aspects in council where we've been very supportive of the mining resource industry, and we've had support for the last 10 years with councillors attending, and I'm very happy to move this.
Do we have a speaker against? Councillor Mathers?
Mr Mayor, it's more of a question in regards, if that's okay.
Yeah, we can have a question.
So I just wanted to, it's for the rest of the term, but I'm just wondering, it's not mentioning how many councillors are intending on going to these expos, because once again, I think I've made it pretty clear. My thoughts are, I just don't see why we've got to have multiple councillors. As long as we have someone representing Rockingham Regional Council, I'm fine with that, but I don't see why we need 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah. we're in debate. We'll continue with the debate. So, Speaker against the motion, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to speak against the motion for probably the reason Councillor Mathers has just raised, is that, you know, we were trying to be quite firm about how many councillors we sent off to all of our conferences and meetings like this. So when it comes back to the table, we can get the opportunity, and it can also then, we can look that it's sort of, everybody gets a bit of a bite of the cherry too. So I don't have an issue with it coming back to the table to be discussed at all. And I think it's great. We sort of did a good leadership role in these mining expos, you know, right from the start. And, you know, I can't thank Councillor Fisher for the drive there. But I think we've done a good job, and we now have lots of our businesses that are attending these. So it's like everything. You lead and you get people to follow, and we certainly have done that. So I don't think this is something where we need to be sending, you know, a great horde of us to attend these things anymore, because I think our job is done, and we just send a few people and or a couple of people and back away. So that's where I'm coming from. That's my thought process for this.
Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Another speaker for the recommendation, Councillor Fisher.
I'll speak for the motion, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to just sort of say, for the last 10 years, I've been very active with the resource industry, but I need to sort of step back because I want to actually support the Mayor with the work that we need to do with the military and procurement of more military opportunities. But it is actually very, very similar, that approach that we took when we first were exploring with the resource industry. We need to do that with the military. But during that time, it wasn't just attending the mining expos, it was actually sort of showing that Rockhampton was actually keen to be part of the industry. When we had comments from the you know, managing directors and senior mines managers that Rockhampton there must have a very good product to sell, when you have your board of directors who are prepared to go on the showroom floor. And that's where we started really making some goals. From the start, we were seen as outsiders. Why do you want a town that just kills beef to be in our industry, when very much a lot of our community works in it? And with this motion, it's not saying that we're going to have multiple people. This is just to free up those continual, those that want to go, as long as they can keep it to their budget. It was something that we had at the start of this term, that it was one of those commitments we made. But I know Councillor Smith has taken over my role with the resource industry. It's just so that they're not having to write every 2 months a report as such. But we have gained so much from the resource industry. We would not have had the piggyback landfill option if it wasn't for the resource industry. The opportunity that came from the Surat Mining Expo, we were virtually going to start trucking our waste to Gladstone. That's how close it was. And can you imagine now, when you sort of think about it, what cost that would have been as an impact? We have seen where we are the go-to for many, many companies in the resource industry. We've seen, you know, the use of Rockhampton as one of the hubs for Bravos. We've seen many of our businesses actually prosper because they're part of a region that is recognised. So it is important. We don't need to have a cast of thousands going to these luncheons. We have to have just a person, usually, because we're just recognised when these events are there, it's good for those companies that are attending. We are always announced that we have representatives from the Rockhampton Regional Council. So I do think that this is worthwhile, and it's just probably just reducing that amount of bookwork. Those that don't do too many of the conferences, you probably don't realise sometimes you're left with the last minute of trying to race a notice of motion to meet the books on the schedules when usually you're busy with other components as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. The Speaker against the motion.
Oh, not against. I just had a question, if I may. Is it too late for questions because the vote has been put?
Question?
I just wanted to ask around the expenditure. If the costs end up going outside and you can't afford your travel, will you be footing that personally, or do you intend on bringing it to the table to adjust your expenditure?
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. I don't expect that the $99 for the luncheon expense, I don't expect that to be significant to the point that I would have to ask to bring back to the table for additional sums, funding for it. But to answer your question specifically, if I was to fall outside of that, I would actually pay for it myself.
Another speaker against the motion, Councillor Wickerson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Fisher about the many benefits of attending these, and I've attended a few in my terms as well, so absolutely that's not being questioned at all. I think that the recommendation as it's written is a little bit open-ended. It does say approved councillors, that could be everyone. It's a bit carte blanche, if that's a word. And also during their current term of office. Well, that's not just us, that could be future councillors and their current terms of office too, so it's a bit open-ended. I think, as Councillor Fisher said, one or two would be fine. I don't think probably where we do disagree, I don't think the impost to bring a quick report back for the table's approval is that much of an impost, so I don't see the overall reason to support this, so I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Another speaker for the
Can I
motion.
just make a statement at all? Can
No, we're in debate, Councillor. It's speaker for the motion.
Can I respond to Councillor Wickerson's?
No, we're in debate. So we'll ask for
I'll speak for the motion.
Speak for the motion, Councillor Kirkland.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Fisher on this. I think it's good to have somebody sitting there. It shows we've got skin in the game, and it reports back. And the initiative of Councillor Latcham, I'm assuming this is just in the first person, that it's for you. A good point out there, though, Councillor Wickerson, in the recommendation, maybe change it to Councillor Latcham's attendance at Bowen Basin Mining Club to fix that. And the fact that he's going to be driving himself, and the fact that he's going to foot the bill if he goes over his expenditure. It's his choice if he wants to attend different things, and I commend him for thinking of the region to make sure that we're represented.
Okay, speaker against the motion. I'll speak against the motion, Councillor. I think we have ample opportunity in the mining resources sector that we've shown that support over the years, and I don't think by not having somebody attending a luncheon diminishes that support in any way. I believe putting the motion to the council has more oversight and more governance in it going forward, and that's part of that previous recommendation was put there for a purpose, so the board of directors can have a say in where that allocation is going and where the budget has been approved or not approved in some circumstances for the operations and council's overall budget for that going forward. I think we've got to diversify ourselves so much. We've had a lot of input into the resources area, and I think we've got opportunities in renewables, but then also with defence about where we need to share those supports going forward. So I think there's great opportunity there for councils to be participating in those other areas as well, not so much this one. So I'd see the status quo and the process there that has been previously through that notice of motion and that recommendation that was supported, that it's not denying the opportunity to go, but just going through the right channels in putting that recommendation to the council. Councillor Latcham, did you want to? Was there another speaker for?
Yes.
You didn't speak before? No, you're right.
I didn't. I just wanted to say that the last one that was in Mackay, the last luncheon, I was going, but I think that was when I came down with COVID, so we had no councillors there at all. There's only ever one or two of us anyway. It is true that we have, and I remember going in the early days, and we were going around giving out our cards everywhere. It was hard work to let people know that we were there in the resources sector. And we eventually got a lot of our businesses to go to those luncheons, and they saw the benefit of it, but they still expect to see us there. They still expect to see councillor representation at those luncheons, because they have said that to me.
Yep, that's fine. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Speaker against?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. It's not the basis of the motion, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree that we need to have some sort of representation there, but I don't see why it needs to be any more than one councillor. I really don't. You know, keeping in mind that officers go there as well, so it's not just one lonely councillor. There's officers that you know, ratepayers are footing the bill for as well as a councillor. I just don't see that. You know, knowing what the current budget is and how hard everyone's worked to try to keep it down, I just don't think we need to be spending the money on having multiple councillors going. So that's the reason why I'm speaking against this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Latcham, I think we've exhausted the
just
the
a few more
debate,
comments,
so
if I may.
Wrap up.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, may I mention that I had the opportunity a month or so back to go and take the stand at the Queensland Mining Expo, and there's one thing that we shouldn't just take for granted and rest on our laurels. We've had a 10-year commitment to the mining industry, and probably the biggest feedback I got being on the stand is, why is Rockhampton here? What is Rockhampton Regional Council doing at the Queensland Mining Expo? It still hasn't sunk in. We obviously haven't done enough work to let them know that we're committed to the resource industry. And I just think we need to keep working on it. Just don't accept that we've done enough work on it the last 10 years. We'll just let it slide. I think we need to keep working hard at it. As for attendance at the Bowen Basin Mining Club meetings, when it comes on most occasions, and there's only a few councillors that go consistently, a lot of the times they carpool. So it's not two vehicles going up to Mackay. It's carpooling to share on those expenses. So we are trying to keep the expenses down as much as possible. So I encourage my fellow councillors to strongly consider what we've discussed today, and ultimately I think this is a thing that will help the process for those who want to go and attend the Bowen Basin Mining Club, and it might only be one or two, possibly three, that consistently may or may not want to go. This frees up the process that they can have that choice without having to bring it back every 2 months. Because as others have said, sometimes you do leave it to the last moment, unfortunately, and it makes it difficult. So it'd be nice to have nice to put a message out there in the community that we're here to support the resource industry, and we encourage our councillors to attend it should they want to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Latcham. Okay, councillors, I'll put the vote. Those in favour? Those opposed? I'll use my casting vote to vote down the motion. Thank you. We'll move on to the next notice of motion. Councillor Kirkland, a local government women's association travel to Brisbane. Councillor Kirkland, happy to move. Do we seek a seconder? Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Kirkland, wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is just a great opportunity. You know, part of our corporate plan goal is to make sure that we're networking. One of the mechanisms is to participate in collaborative networking opportunities, and this is a great opportunity for me to do that and build relationships with neighbouring regions, meeting people and gleaning from their experience. You know, obviously this is my first term, and it's a great opportunity for me to learn from those who've been doing things in other areas just as much as my colleagues here. So
just thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Just a question though to Evan. We used to have like a recommendation for these ones to come up before where we'd ask for a councillor.
Yeah, normally we would, Mayor. I don't know why it fell through the...
Yeah, rather than a recommendation, councillor, we'd normally have a report to come if there was anyone interested in... I think Councillor Rose Plodling used to go, and we'd have a...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, through yourself. Very much like the LGAQ, when they're having a conference coming up, they would send a notice to me, and then I would actually then put a report to the council table. For some reason, the last couple of years, I haven't recalled seeing one from, yeah, so.
Okay.
I did have a conversation with him.
Yeah, no worries. Speaker against the motion?
Oh, no, just a question and a comment.
Question? Probably not the comment. We didn't debate, Councillor.
Yeah, I think when we, in the beginning of our term, when we were having councillor, you know, not portfolios, but like the CPMG, etc., I was supposed to be the delegate for Algwa, but I missed but only because I used to go to the Queensland conferences. It was on in March this year at Whitsunday, and it was in the middle of COVID, and they pleaded with me to go, but it was too risky, I thought. But I'm happy, you know, if Councillor Kirkland wants to go to this meeting, but if it was a conference, I'd say you get a lot out of it. I'm not sure about a meeting. I have attended their meetings, one online and the other one I couldn't get to, but it's very high level sort of motions, and I just thought, but I noticed that there is, they will also host training with PIC services on media relations and speech writing with Kim Scubas, so I assume that that's part of the meeting. So, you know, there is a fair bit of value in it.
We'll double check those appointments that were done at the start of the term as well. So.
Right.
Yeah, it was sort of like it was an appointment, but we haven't had. I don't think any of it. Previous councillor Swadling and I went to an Australian one in Sydney, which was really good, and I think we then went to the Queensland one as well a few years ago. Yeah, they're very good conferences, but this is just a meeting. But if a conference comes up, the Queensland one, I'd suggest going to it because they have really good speakers normally.
So just a question, Councillor Kirkland, you intend to go to every meeting, or is this just a one-off?
I suppose it would be the answer to that question would be determined by my experience at this one. Yeah, so yeah, noting that there's the peak services training that's in the morning, and then the AGM is in the afternoon, and then there's networking in the evening as well. So it's just an opportunity to meet those people, experience what they do, see how it all goes. I've attended a couple of the online meetings previously, just watched in, but I just felt this was a great opportunity, being that it was close to home. And I need to change the word just after, it's the Queensland AGM, so where it says annual general meeting, it should say Queensland annual general meeting, just to be certain that it's not the national one.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Yeah, we just need to check on the voting if it's an AGM and whether you're there on behalf of council and voting on behalf of council, or just not. Are you just an observer? Or?
Yes, because of COVID, people were made members without having to pay a fee, so it was kind of like a gratuitous membership. So I have a membership, so I don't know how that goes with voting.
You can attend these meetings
as an observer?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry, Mr Mayor, we've just been informed that Councillor Smith was appointed to the association at the start of the term, so she would be, we just double check that, but... Yeah, Councillor Kirkland can get approval to go, so you can go...
You don't wish to go, so okay.
Yeah.
So would that be a proxy, or would that be as a observer? Proxy. I'm happy for that, but I'm just not sure what the resolutions would be at that one from the council position on that. Whether it's just an observer, it's a different...
Happy to put the words in just as an observer if everyone's comfortable with that. Because it really is for me about the experience. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Righto. So we have a mover. Moved Councillor Kirkland, spoke for the motion, seconded Councillor Wickerson. Do we have another speaker against the motion? If not, you wish to wrap up, Councillor? Or happy to? I'm happy to put the motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Now, Neil, questions on notice? Neil, urgent business, Neil?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Following on from my previous notice of motion, urgent business, the next Bowen Basin Mining Club is on the 15th of September. Would require approval beforehand to attend that one. So I'm seeking to get approval to be able to attend the Bowen Basin Mining Club on the 15th of September in Mackay.
You could do it through this through as an urgent matter, because there won't be enough time for another council meeting.
Yeah. You'll move. Do we have a seconder? Move. Second, Councillor Wickerson. Speaker for, you spoke for it. I'll speak against. I just think Councillor Latcham, I don't know. I'm not going to make it public. I've just got a different opinion in way the budget was handed down, where that sits. That said, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have a matter to be dealt with in closed session. It's a legal matter, councillors. So, as per the recommendation that in accordance with provisions under the 254J3, the Local Government Regulations 2012, that the local government may resolve to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items such as the councillors' members considered necessary to close the meeting. Have a mover and a seconder with regards to that, please. Move Councillor Smith, second Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. And that pursuant of the Council S512, the Council procedure meeting, that the Council meeting moves into closed session and the meeting be closed to the public. Move Councillor Smith, second Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. The Council...
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine, everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine, everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine, everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine, everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Councillors, we have the officer's recommendation that we proceed with actions set out in options B in this report. Can I have a mover and a seconder with regards to that? I'm happy to move. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Mathers, Rutherford, sorry. Keep throwing back to that grade 8.
Johnny Billy, all the way down the table.
Seconded Councillor Rutherford. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillor, there be no further items on the agenda. Or Councillor Wickerson?
Yeah, Mayor, sorry, one urgent one, not urgent, but important that I forgot earlier. Just to let other councillors know about the passing of Bishop John Baton. Now, we know about the Baton Awards, but Bishop's claim to fame was he went with Rex Pilbeam, I think back in 1975 or so, on the rounds of Queensland and put together what's now our cream collection. So all the art names that we'd learnt in school, you know, Russell Drysdale and Boyd and others, the Bishop was in on that too with Rex. And I think there was a local architect as well, I think, that went along with him. So he's passed away. He was aged 91, and instrumental in putting together a collection that we value so much today. So
yeah, no, thanks for raising that, Councillor Wickerson. It's a great legacy and something there that'll be held in good stead with our new Museum of Art going forward. Would you like to move a recommendation?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what that would be, though. There is a media announcement going out on behalf of RMOU, but I'm not sure as a council whether we need to move something to his family.
Could we just send a letter to the family? Yeah.
Okay, we won't need a motion. We can just do that offline anyway. The media release that's coming out anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for that, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor, there be no further items. We'll close the meeting. Thank everyone for your attendance. Okay, that's it.